Chapter 191. There were many people on the mountain, including the examinees and the Imperial Army soldiers stationed on the mountain. It wasn't easy to find the instructor he was looking for in a short period of time. Fool! Didn't you hear what I said? Just as he was searching for the hidden instructor, Wang Chong suddenly heard a low and tyrannical voice coming from the crowd. But Gongzi, this is my only chance, Wang Chong heard another person pleading bitterly. Humph. I don't care if this is your only chance or not. Don't forget, your father is my father's subordinate. If you dare to disobey me, your father can just wait to go home and farm. By then, your entire family can just wait to starve. That fellow is very strong. You had better remember this. No matter what, even if you die, you have to severely injure him. I know your capabilities. You can definitely do it. The voice that Wang Chong heard previously threatened fiercely. Humph. Bullying the weak again. It's one thing if it's anywhere else, but you dare to do it in the 3 great training camps? You sure are gutsy. Wang Chong sneered coldly. He had already understood what was going on. He had long heard that some people in the 3 great training camps would make use of their family's influence to force others to do something during the instructor's examination so as to gain an unfair advantage for themselves. As their methods were discreet and didn't break the rules, not even the instructors could do anything about it. However, this was the first time Wang Chong had encountered such a thing since he entered the Kunwa training camp. With a thought, Wang Chong quickly turned around and walked toward the source of the voice. Kunwa training camp was filled with people, but not many noticed them. Through the crowd, Wang Chong saw 3 proud figures standing there. Standing before them was a teenager dressed in simple clothes. He was kneeling on the ground, hugging one of the legs of one of the 3 and begging bitterly. He seemed to be filled with despair. At first glance, Wang Chong didn't pay much attention to him. However, when he saw the face, Wang Chong was stunned. How, is it him? Wang Chong stood there in a daze, suddenly recognizing who these people were. In the future, the Kunwa training camp would definitely be full of talented generals. The illustrious generals of the Tang dynasty would definitely dazzle the starry sky and illuminate the night sky of the Tang dynasty for a long time. This was the most glorious period of the Tang dynasty, and it would also be the last glorious period. When this light had illuminated the heavens, Wang Chong had still been one of the unsung commoners. Therefore, Wang Chong and them actually missed each other. The 2 sides did not have much interaction. In their era, he was still a nobody, but in his era, they had already fallen. This was the deepest regret in Wang Chong's heart. As the last Grand Marshal of the Tang dynasty, he did not have a capable general who could take charge of an area. This had always been a deep pain in Wang Chong's heart. It was precisely because of this that Wang Chong was finally unable to do it alone. He had been silently holding on for more than 10 years, but he was still defeated and killed. If history could be changed, he would have been able to rise to fame in that era of talented generals. If there were so many generals for him to command, perhaps everything would be different. Because of this, Wang Chong had a good understanding of the talented generals who came out of the 3 major training camps, especially those from the Kunwa training camp. Among the talented generals who came out of the Kunwa training camp, there was one person who was the most special. Because he was very good at surprise attacks. Among the countless talented generals of the Tang dynasty, there were very few generals with such a style. In the era when the entire Tang dynasty was in darkness and turmoil, the army he led used to make surprise attacks and breakthroughs under very unfavorable circumstances, creating opportunities for the army. In that era, many people had high hopes for him. But this person was like a comet. After a short burst of dazzling brilliance, he fell in a hurry. His weak martial arts became the fatal cause of his death. And an inappropriate order to break through became the direct cause of his death. And when it came down to it, it was because he had followed an inappropriate master. Regarding this matter, countless people sighed and lamented over it. Sun Jiming. A thought flashed across Wang Chang's mind as he looked at the kneeling examinee. To be able to forcefully order Sun Jiming to inflict heavy damage on a potential competitor to pave the way for him, this person should be Deng Mingxin. In other words, the person who would cause Sun Jiming's death in the future. To think that it would be them. It was one thing if Wang Chong didn't know about it, but if he didn't know, he couldn't just ignore it. If there were no accidents, this Sun Jiming would have failed the examination in the first batch due to Deng Mingxin. Most probably, it would only be the second batch that he entered the Kunwa training camp, and that would be half a year later. Even though it was just a difference of half a year, it could be a qualitative difference for a person. Many of the instructors who appeared in the first batch stopped teaching or guiding students in the second batch. Some of them were promoted, while others were completely focused on the first batch, unwilling to guide any more students. Furthermore, the first batch received a huge amount of attention and resources after the opening of the 3 great training camps. To those who truly wanted to enter the Kunwa training camp, the slightest difference could lead to a huge error. Not to mention, it would delay half a year of cultivation. Enough. Get up. As these thoughts flashed across Wang Chang's mind, a glint flashed across his eyes, and he immediately strode over. Sun Jiming, get up. There's no need to beg him. You're a man, so why should you be threatened by such a vile person? Wang Chong walked over, grabbed Sun Jiming's arm, and pulled him up from the ground. Sun Jiming stared blankly at the young man who had appeared out of nowhere. He had never seen this person before, and he couldn't understand why the other party would know his name. What's going on? Bastard, where did this scum come from? Why are you here to mess around? Who are you? This matter has nothing to do with you, so I advise you to stay out of our business and stay far away from here. While Sun Jiming was still in a daze, Deng Mingxin and the others had already flown into a rage out of humiliation. The 3 of them were in the midst of teaching Sun Jiming a lesson when a tortoise suddenly appeared and interfered in their affairs. The 3 great training camps were extremely important to them, and anyone who dared to spoil their plans would be their mortal enemy. If I were you, I would leave right now. Deng Mingxin stepped forward and glared viciously at Wang Chong, not bothering to conceal his threat. Deng Mingxin, if I were you, I would scram right now. You can't afford to offend me. Wang Chong sneered coldly. Bastard, how can you speak to young Master Deng in such a manner? One of the lackeys couldn't hold himself back any longer and sent a fist flying toward Wang Chong. Hong long long. Dust billowed. No one could see how Wang Chong had made his move, but the lackey by Deng Mingxin's side was already smashed to the ground by Wang Chang's fist. The force was so great that the ground seemed to tremble for a moment. Not just Deng Mingxin, even the surrounding examinees were stunned by the sight. Only then did Sun Jiming react. He stared at Wang Chong in shock, realizing that the other party's background wasn't simple. Who in the world are you? Deng Mingxin's eyes narrowed as he flew into a rage out of humiliation. Guards, guards! Someone is fighting on the mountain, assaulting the examinees. Deng Mingxin's lackey reacted even faster and shouted toward the top of the mountain. On the first day of the training camp, anyone who dared to start a fight on the mountain would be met with the guards, and it was even possible for them to be stripped of their qualifications. Who are you? Don't you know that fighting is strictly prohibited here? The commotion on the mountain had already attracted the attention of several Imperial Army members. Like ferocious tigers descending from the mountain, they rushed over from all directions with disdain on their faces. Humph, it's him. I don't know what's wrong with him, but he suddenly attacked our men as though he had gone mad. Upon seeing the Imperial Army members arrive, one of Deng Mingxin's lackeys pointed at Wang Chong and sneered coldly. Deng Mingxin didn't say a word, but a gleeful glint flashed across his eyes. I've already told you to leave as soon as possible. But it's a pity that you didn't listen and insisted on meddling in other people's business. Deng Mingxin sneered coldly. Against a brute like Wang Chong, there was no need for him to make a move personally. As long as he played some tricks, regardless of whether Wang Chong made a move or not, he would be able to teach him a harsh lesson. Without such capabilities, how could he possibly control Sun Jiming and have him under his thumb? Is that so? I've already said that I'm not someone you can afford to offend. Wang Chong sneered coldly. Before the gazes of the crowd, before the Imperial Army members, he suddenly whipped out a token from his waist. Seeing the two simple words on the token, everyone's face paled in shock. The King of Song. This is the token of the King of Song. Exclamations of shock sounded in the surroundings. The arrogant Deng Mingxin and the others felt as though their eyes had been pricked by needles. Upon seeing the token, their faces immediately warped. I know who he is. He's Wang Chong. Heavens! He really came to the Kunwu training camp. A commotion broke out in the surroundings. Among the crowd, someone finally recognized Wang Chang's voice. And upon hearing Wang Chang's name, Deng Mingxin's heart sank to the bottom of a lake. He finally understood why the other party dared to be so nosy before him. However, it was better not to know than to not know. Deng Mingxin's heart felt heavy. So it's Wang Gongzi. Given Gongzi's reputation, it's unlikely that Gongzi made a move first. What's wrong with you all? To dare to make a move in the Kunwu training camp, do you still want to participate in the examination? Bring him away. How dare he make a move on Gongzi in the training camp? Strip him of his right to participate in the examination. The voices of the Imperial Guards reached their ears, causing their expressions to turn ugly to the extreme. Before the crowd's eyes, the Imperial Army members were openly siding with Wang Chong. They picked up the unconscious examinee and dragged him down the mountain. Just like that, he was stripped of his right to participate in the examination. Gongzi. Beside Deng Mingxin, the follower's face was ashen and pale. Right, Gongzi, if you have the time, make a few more Wuzi steel swords. A single sword a month is too little. One of the Imperial Army members had already walked 10 zhang away when he suddenly turned around and spoke to Wang Chong passionately. In the Imperial Army, there was almost no one who didn't know of the Wood steel sword, regardless of whether it was internal or external. Especially after the commander of the Imperial Army bought Wang Chang's Death's Abyss, the reputation of the Wuzi steel sword had spread like wildfire in the Imperial Army. I understand. Chapter 192. Wang Chong. You're Wang Chong Gongzi. At this moment, Sun Jiming was completely dumbfounded. Wang Chong had submitted a memorial to the Holy Emperor regarding the regional commander's incident, causing him to be hated by the Hu and imprisoned in the imperial prison. Sun Jiming didn't expect that the one who would suddenly appear to help him deal with Deng Mingxin would be Wang Chong. In that instant, Sun Jiming was incomparably agitated. Wang Gongzi, I have no grudge with you, so why must you go against me? Deng Mingxin stared at Wang Chong with an awful expression. After learning of Wang Chang's identity and seeing him take out the token of the King of Song, Deng Mingxin knew that he had kicked a metal plate this time. Where's your high and mighty attitude from just now? What? Are you going to admit defeat now? Wang Chong sneered coldly as he slowly adjusted his sleeves. There's no need for you to think too much. I just want to tell you this. I'm determined to interfere in Sun Jiming's affairs. Those words left Deng Mingxin's face even uglier than the bottom of his stomach. Wang Gongzi, must you do this? Deng Mingxin took a deep breath. He knew that there was no way he could resolve this matter peacefully. Since Wang Chong insisted on interfering in Sun Jiming's affairs, he decided to throw caution to the wind. Even though my background isn't as good as yours, you shouldn't be too gleeful. I might not be able to deal with you, but there are plenty of people in the Kunwu training camp who can. The King of Song might be powerful, but he's still no match for King Qi in the royal court. Sun Jiming, think carefully. Are you going to follow me or him? You should know the consequences of offending King Qi. When the time comes, it won't be as simple as just losing your father's position. He had to get his hands on Sun Jiming, and it wasn't just because this matter concerned whether he could enter the Kunwu training camp or not. Furthermore, Sun Jiming was the only talent under his father. Even that person had said that Sun Jiming's talent was astounding, and he was someone that he should have a firm grasp over. As long as he could tame Sun Jiming, he would surely be able to achieve meteoric success in the future. Furthermore, Sun Jiming was also the reason why he had chosen to side with King Qi. It didn't matter if Wang Chong taught his lackey a lesson or made him lose face. But Sun Jiming couldn't leave. No matter what, he had to firmly grasp this person in his hands. Seeing how Deng Mingxin was still trying to threaten Sun Jiming at this point in time, Wang Chong was infuriated. If he allowed Sun Jiming to continue following Deng Mingxin, Sun Jiming's death would only be a matter of time. To think that Deng Mingxin would dare to use his clan and King Qi to suppress Sun Jiming. Wang Chong didn't mind using his illustrious family background to suppress Deng Mingxin's cautiousness. Deng Mingxin, no wonder you're so confident. It turned out that he had sided with King Qi. But do you think that relying on Prince Qi will be of any use? Wang Chong sneered coldly. Since Deng Mingxin refused to let go of Sun Jiming and even used his clan to threaten him, he couldn't be blamed for his actions. Deng Mingxin, I heard that your father is Deng Zhou, right? Fine. Tomorrow, return to the countryside with your father. Those words made Deng Mingxin's face darken. Wang Chong, stop bragging. Who do you think you're scaring? You don't have the capability. We'll find out tomorrow whether you believe me or not. Wang Chong sneered coldly. His big uncle, Wang Zhen, was an influential official in the royal court, and the king of Song had reinstated his position and returned to the royal court. As long as the two of them worked together, it would be a walk in the park to demote a minor official and have him retire early. Deng Mingxin's father, Deng Zhou, was an assistant minister in the Bureau of Personnel, wielding great authority over the life and death of officials. It was through this authority that the Deng clan was able to keep Sun Jiming's family in the palm of their hands. However, if he didn't have this identity, he would like to see what Deng Mingxin would use to threaten Sun Jiming. Sun Jiming, don't worry. I'll help you if anything happens. Just go ahead and take the examination. As for Deng Mingxin, there won't be an assistant minister Deng Zhou in the Bureau of Personnel anymore, so he won't be able to threaten you anymore. Wang Chong lightly said, his right hand patting Sun Jiming's shoulder, his expression naturally exuding an aura that could convince others. The current Wang clan had risen from the ashes, and everyone was united. Together with the king of Song and the consort Tai Jin in the palace, they were determined to protect Sun Jiming. Gongzi, thank you. Sun Jiming bowed deeply in gratitude. There was no one in the world who didn't know of Duke Zhou's name. If the Wang clan were to stand up for him, he wouldn't have to worry about his father. Bastard! Sun Jiming, don't regret this. How could Deng Mingxin not know Sun Jiming's choice? With a steely face, he flung his sleeves and stormed off. He could still say a few words if Wang Chong were to instigate Sun Jiming. But since Sun Jiming had chosen Wang Chong, there was nothing he could do about it. There was no point in staying here. Gongzi. Seeing Deng Mingxin leave, the other lackey's face darkened, and he hurriedly followed. Looking at their backs, Wang Chong chuckled inwardly. A wicked man needs another wicked man to deal with. Against someone like Deng Mingxin, Wang Chong didn't mind playing the role of the wicked man for a moment. Most of the students in Kunwu training camp were commoners or descendants of ordinary officials, so Wang Chong wouldn't make use of their status to deal with them. But if anyone tried to use their status to bully others and undermine fairness, Wang Chong wouldn't mind using his own identity to suppress them. Sun Jiming, you're quite perceptive. However, your root bone is still lacking. After today's examination, come over to my place. I'll impart a panther bone cultivation technique to you. Wang Chong said. On the path of martial arts, one had to progress from easy to difficult. It wasn't that Wang Chong wasn't willing to impart a higher root bone cultivation technique to him. Rather, Sun Jiming hadn't even reached the most basic panther bone. There was no benefit in imparting him the tiger bone. Thank you, Gongzi. Overjoyed, Sun Jiming stood up and bowed deeply. The root bone cultivation technique had always been a secret of the general clans. Sun Jiming's talent wasn't bad, but his root bone was too weak. An elder once told him that if he could make up for his weak root bone, his future would be limitless. This was also the reason why Sun Jiming was so determined to join Kunwu training camp. Sun Jiming didn't expect Wang Chong to be willing to impart the panther bone cultivation technique to him. Hee, there's no need to thank me. Also, if possible, try to learn a movement technique. Even though the steel cavalry's speed is unparalleled, they aren't omnipotent. What would happen if the steel cavalry were to be killed? Movement technique? Sun Jiming was taken aback. He didn't expect Wang Chong to suddenly mention this. Wang Chong chuckled, not saying anything else. There were many reasons for Sun Jiming's death. Improper orders, weak personal strength. These were all reasons. However, based on Wang Chong's experience as the Grand Marshal of the Central Plains, he could instinctively sense that Sun Jiming had a fatal flaw. He didn't pay much attention to his movement technique. Indeed, the steel cavalry's charge was as fast as lightning. As long as one could control the horse well and become one with it, it wouldn't matter even if one didn't learn movement techniques. However, if the horse were to be killed, its short legs would immediately become a fatal obstacle. Ever since the founding of the Tang dynasty, countless talented generals had emerged from the Central Plains. There were many who accidentally fell into a tight encirclement on the battlefield, but even so, there was a high chance that they would be able to escape alive. But Sun Jiming was different. If his horse were to be killed and he fell into a tight encirclement, his chances of survival were close to zero. He wouldn't even be able to hold out until the reinforcements arrived. The situation on the battlefield could change in an instant. Although a dense group of enemies would be a great hindrance, if one could have a good movement technique and footwork, on the battlefield, a dense group of enemies could sometimes be of help to obstruct the enemy's leader and help one escape. Sun Jiming specialized in surprise attacks. Under such circumstances, the chances of him falling into a tight encirclement was much higher than other generals. If he didn't change his habits and didn't pay attention to movement techniques, he would never be able to change his fate in the end. There were very few talented generals in the Tang dynasty, and Wang Chong didn't wish for such a talented general to meet his end in such a manner. Wang Chong didn't linger, quickly disappearing into the crowd. Many things were best left unsaid. Saying too much would only bring about trouble. Movement technique. Behind him, Sun Jiming was still muttering to himself. He had encountered far too many inconceivable things on Wang Chong. For example, the other party actually knew that his name was Sun Jiming and that he knew Deng Mingxin. More importantly, he even knew that Deng Mingxin's father was Assistant Minister of Revenue, Deng Zhou. Sun Jiming couldn't believe his ears. But there was no doubt that Wang Chong was here to help him. This Gongzi is truly unfathomable. It's hard to fathom him with common sense. Sun Jiming's heart was in turmoil. Even though he didn't know why Wang Chong would mention movement techniques to him, Sun Jiming made a mental note of it. With such thoughts in mind, Sun Jiming quickly roused himself and headed up the mountain. Gongzi, who is that? Zhao Jingdian walked over from the crowd and stared in Sun Jiming's direction in astonishment. He had been here for a while now, and he thought that Sun Jiming and Wang Chong were old acquaintances. To think that they weren't. That person will be our comrade in arms on the battlefield in the future. Wang Chong chuckled. The future had changed. Even though he didn't know where it was headed, at the very least, it should be beneficial to him. Pulling Zhao Jingdian along, Wang Chong quickly made his way up the mountain. However, Sun Jiming's matter had reminded him that this Kunwu training camp was filled with countless future great generals. Now that he was involved, perhaps he could use the advantage of his foresight to change a few people, change a few things, preserve more talents for the Great Tang, retain a few more generals, and accumulate even more vitality. Wait here for me for a moment. With such thoughts in mind, Wang Chong headed toward the center of the crowd. Before Zhao Jingdian could react, Wang Chong had already disappeared. Standing amidst the crowd, Zhao Jingdian was at a loss as to what Wang Chong was up to. Roughly 2 hours later, Wang Chong appeared before Zhao Jingdian once more. His expression was much more relaxed than before, clearly indicating that he had gained something. Jingdian, come with me. I've found that instructor. Chapter 193. In the Kungwu training camp, several hundred zhang away from the peak, a middle-aged instructor stood motionlessly on a protruding boulder with his hands behind his back. Different from the other instructors, the crowd around this instructor was sparse. Most of the people hurriedly walked past him, not even sparing him a glance as they rushed toward the other instructors to take the test. Seeing this sight, the instructor didn't seem to mind it at all. Instead, he smiled. "Instructor, I wish to take the test." After an unknown period of time, a student suddenly walked up from the foot of the mountain and bowed respectfully. "Ha, you have to think it through. The difficulty here is much higher than the other places. In other places, you might be sparring with other examinees, but here, you have to spar with me." The instructor placed his hands behind his back and smiled. "Instructor." The skinny student was taken aback. In the other instructors, most of the battles were between examinees. This was the first time he heard that he had to spar with an instructor. How could an examinee be a match for an instructor? Wouldn't it be impossible for him to pass the test? That's right. Not only do you have to spar with me personally. Furthermore, the number of slots available here is much lesser than the other instructors. If you were to waste your time here, the other instructors might have already filled up their slots and left. You have to think it through, okay? The instructor smiled with his eyes squinted. The skinny examinee was taken aback. This was the first time he met an instructor who was so considerate of the examinees. This was also the first time he met an instructor who forbade him from taking the test. I'm sorry, I'll try somewhere else. The examinee hurriedly lowered his head with a flushed face. After apologizing a few times, he hurriedly left. The instructor didn't get angry. Watching as the examinee left, he continued to stand on the boulder with a smile, not moving an inch. Following which, a few more examinees came to inquire, but without exception, they were all persuaded to leave. There were a few who weren't afraid of death, but they weren't even able to withstand half a blow from the instructor before they were sent flying far away. Their mouths were filled with mud, and they didn't dare to approach him anymore. For more than half an hour, there wasn't a single examinee around the instructor who had passed. "Young Master Chong, is he the one you are talking about?" Around a dozen steps away from the examinee, Zhao Jingdian looked at the instructor and frowned. "Yes." Wang Chong nodded seriously. His eyes were fixed on the instructor, and he did not move at all. "We've been standing here for a long time." But he couldn't see anything special about it. This instructor was too strong. And from the looks of it, he's not anxious at all. Zhao Jingdian said. The more he looked at the instructor, the more suspicious he became. In this Kungwu training camp, all the instructors had a certain number of examinees standing next to them, but this one was the only one without any. Of course he isn't in a hurry. We are the ones who should be anxious. If you miss this mountain, you will miss this temple. The biggest reward in the Kungwu training camp is this instructor. Wang Chong said. Ah. Zhao Jingdian was taken aback. Wang Chong's words were truly novel, and he found them rather strange. Anyway, remember this. Under this instructor's name, you will receive more benefits than the other instructors. That's all. Wang Chong said. Oh. Zhao Jingdian nodded his head. It would be much easier to understand if he spoke in another way. Wang Chong did not speak anymore. He had been observing this instructor for quite some time now. Initially, Wang Chong was worried that this instructor might have left due to his recruitment limit. But after witnessing it personally, Wang Chong knew that he was overthinking. It was much more difficult to join this special instructor who taught the art of commanding. Since the other party had taken the initiative to persuade one not to join him, it was clear that there was a problem. Furthermore, based on Wang Chong's observation, this instructor was different from the others. The other instructors had 20 to 30 slots each, but based on his previous life's memories, Wang Chong had estimated that this instructor would recruit 4 to 5 people. But looking at his calm demeanor, Wang Chong felt that he was wrong. This instructor probably did not have a quota. It was purely a matter of luck. Even if no one picked him, he would be fine. In the end, I still have to do it myself. Wang Chong's eyebrows twitched as he sighed inwardly. For this match, he had originally planned to watch other people's matches first. He wanted to let the other examinees test his strength. In the end, Wang Chong realized that he was overthinking things. This instructor was simply too powerful. The examinees who charged at him didn't even have the strength to force him to leave the boulder beneath his feet. With just a single palm strike, the battle was already over. Overwhelming strength. Fast, ruthless, and accurate. Even if Wang Chong were to stay here for a few more hours, he wouldn't be able to see anything out of the ordinary. Jingdian, watch from the side. I'll give it a try. Wang Chong adjusted his sleeves. Young Master Chong, let me go first. Let me test his skills first. Zhao Jingdian said. There's no need for that. Let me do it. If you fail, you won't stand a chance anymore. Wang Chong said calmly. With regards to this instructor, Wang Chong didn't know much about him. Not everything that happened in the Kunwu training camp would be spread around. At the very least, when Wang Chong first arrived at the Kunwu training camp, he realized that there wasn't a single examinee who passed by the side of this legendary instructor. This was completely different from Wang Chong's impression of him. The future had already changed. What if he could have tried a few more times but could only try once? That would be troublesome. At the very least, Zhao Jingdian wouldn't stand a chance anymore. Furthermore, in terms of experience, insight, and knowledge, the current Zhao Jingdian was far from being a match for him. If even he wasn't a match for him, Zhao Jingdian wouldn't stand a chance at all. This was also the reason why Wang Chong insisted on going first. I wonder if that person will appear again. A thought flashed across Wang Chong's mind. There was another person, tied together with this instructor, but some things had changed. Wang Chong didn't know if that person would appear again. As these thoughts flashed across his mind, Wang Chong quickly walked over. Instructor, this student pays his respects. Wang Chong walked over gracefully and bowed, following the rules. After watching for so long, you are finally willing to come down. The instructor looked at Wang Chong and said. He seemed to have assessed Wang Chong twice more than the others. Upon hearing those words, Wang Chong chuckled. This instructor was much more interesting than he had imagined. Hee, I have no choice but to come down. If this goes on, I probably won't be able to see anything by nightfall. Wang Chong chuckled. He wasn't surprised that this instructor was able to see through his disguise. So, are you confident now? The instructor asked again. No. Wang Chong shook his head honestly. Then why are you here? The instructor found it strange. He looked at Wang Chong with interest. Hee, whether I can pass or not, I have to try to know. I just want to ask, how many chances do I have in total? Interesting. I've been standing here for so long, and you're the first one to ask me this question. You're all going to enter the Kunwu training camp. Why don't you choose an easier instructor? I don't have it easy here. The instructor became more and more interested. This examinee gave him a completely different feeling from the others. Most of the others listened to his advice and experienced his strength, and most of them retreated in the face of difficulties. But this one watched for a long time and didn't say anything. Moreover, it seemed that he had to pass under his name. Heaven rewards the diligent. With great difficulty, there will naturally be great rewards. I don't believe there is no reason why the imperial court has so many instructors with different strengths and levels. Wang Chong said seriously. Interesting. This is really interesting. The instructor laughed and looked at Wang Chong with a strange look in his eyes. I usually don't tell examinees about this kind of thing in advance. But since you're so interesting, I can tell you in advance. With me, you can have 3 chances. As long as you can defeat me or block 3 of my moves, you'll pass. 3 moves. Does it count if I dodge it? Wang Chong asked with great interest. Yes. The instructor smiled and squinted his eyes. His answer was resolute and decisive. Oh. Hearing such a straightforward answer, Wang Chong didn't feel as happy as he imagined. Instead, he became more cautious. Sometimes, the simpler something seemed, the more difficult it was. The fact that the other party was so straightforward could only mean 2 things. Firstly, he had absolute confidence in his own strength. Secondly, his movement technique and speed were definitely very fast, much faster than what most people could imagine. He was not afraid of them dodging at all. For Wang Chong, this was not good news. However, this didn't make Wang Chong give up. Instead, it aroused his fighting spirit. Instructor, I want to have a try. Wang Chong suddenly said. Go ahead. But don't blame me for not reminding you. The assessment of the Kunwu training camp has been going on for a long time. The longer you stay here with me, the lower your chances of passing with the other instructors. Once they've recruited all the examinees, you won't be able to pass even if you're very strong. The instructor said. I understand. Oh, since you insist, let's do it. The instructor smiled faintly and made a please gesture with a confident and calm expression. Clang. Wang Chong didn't stand on ceremony. He suddenly pulled out the long sword at his waist. The clear and long sound was like a dragon or a tiger, instantly attracting the attention of the examinees nearby. Wang Chong held the long sword in his hand and looked at the instructor opposite him. His expression was extremely solemn. Wang Chong would never underestimate his opponent, let alone a legendary instructor of this level. Palms, shoulders, hips, knees, ankles. Wang Chong's eyes kept sweeping across these parts. Although the instructor opposite him had hidden his strength and didn't reveal anything, Wang Chong didn't gain anything after standing next to him for more than an hour. As the world's Grand Marshal in his previous life, Wang Chong's experience and knowledge were still there. It wasn't necessary to know everything. As long as one could see something, one would be able to deduce many things. There are thick calluses on the edges of his palms. This means that his palm force is very heavy and he has a special cultivation in palm force. Usually, this kind of person wouldn't have any special attainments in swordsmanship. In addition, although he doesn't strike much and only uses one arm when he strikes, the tendons in his left shoulder will contract. In addition, his right knee will tremble and his left toe will subconsciously move outwards. This is a habit that he has cultivated over a long period of time. Although I don't know what secret art he cultivates, he would touch these parts when he strikes. There can't be too many secret arts like this. Wang Chong carefully recalled the few times that the instructor had made a move against him, and his mind was in turmoil. If that instructor knew what Wang Chong was thinking about, he would definitely be shocked. This kind of ability to deduce the general trend from small clues far surpassed the performance of Wang Chong's ability at his age. Even veterans who were used to fighting on the battlefield wouldn't be able to do this. Wang Chong's ability was too shocking. Clang. Chapter 194. single character consecutive slash. Wang Chong became one with his sword and shot out explosively, perfectly demonstrating what it meant to be, as still as a virgin, and as agile as a feather. With just this move, he had surpassed 90% of the examinees present. Wang Chong had already disappeared, but many of the examinees who were attracted by the humming of the sword were still staring at the spot where Wang Chong was originally standing. Hee, interesting. On the rock, the instructor smiled, unmoving like a mountain. His expression was calm. Although the speed of Wang Chang's single character consecutive slash was extremely fast, it still couldn't escape his discerning eyes. Wang. Raising his right hand, his sleeves trembled slightly. In a flash, just as Wang Chong pounced over with his sword, the instructor simply slashed out with his palm. This palm strike was no different from the one he had used against the other examinees. It was simple, yet it was as fast as lightning and as heavy as 1,000 caddies. There was simply nothing that could block it. However, at the next moment, something unexpected happened. Bang! Without any warning, just a few steps away from the instructor, a ball of sword light flashed. In an instant, everything turned dark, and Wang Chong disappeared without a trace. And almost at the same time. Kang! Amidst the crisp humming of the sword, a ray of sword light shot out diagonally from the back of the instructor. The sword light was low, aiming straight for the instructor's lower body. When the sound rang out, it was already less than a few inches away from the instructor's right leg. With such a sudden change, the expression of the instructor, who was originally as calm as a virgin and as immovable as a mountain, instantly changed. To think that he could still change his movements so quickly while moving at an extreme speed. Just this move alone had already surpassed all the examinees before him. Bang! His sleeves trembled lightly, ruthlessly hitting the blade of Wang Chang's sword. The soft sleeves and the blade of the sword clashed, yet the sound of metal clashing rang out, as though the sleeves were made of metal. At the same time, a hand with thick calluses that looked like an eagle's claw suddenly reached out and pressed down. It was not aimed at Wang Chang's sword, but at lightning speed, it pressed down on Wang Chang's hand that was holding the sword. After standing in the Kunwa training camp for so long, this was the first time he was forced to leave the protruding rock under his feet. Wang Chang's attack was aimed at his lower body. If he didn't want his legs to be crippled, he had to leave the rock. Clang! Wang Chang's body moved along with his sword as he executed the virtuous steps. At the same time, he swung his sword like a snake coming out of its hole, brushing away the iron sleeves of the instructor. Then, he raised his sword and slashed at the instructor with the single character consecutive slash. Bang! The instructor's eyes finally revealed a dignified look. With a wave of his long sleeves, a majestic force erupted and tossed Wang Chong into the sky with earth-shattering force. Ah! Exclamations of shock sounded in the surroundings. Everyone knew that it was inconvenient to maneuver in the air. The gap between a student and an instructor was simply too huge. An instructor could crush a student with just his strength alone. Being tossed into the air meant that Wang Chang's defeat was inevitable. Young master. Zhao Jingdian, who was watching the battle from afar, couldn't help but reveal a nervous expression. This situation was clearly disadvantageous to Wang Chong. But something unexpected happened. While Wang Chang's body was being flung into the air, he abruptly descended from the sky. At the same time, his body moved along with his sword, and another swift and heavy sword slashed down toward the instructor's hands. Ha ha ha, good. No wonder you insisted on clearing under my name. It turns out that your cultivation has already reached Origin Energy Tier 7. The instructor burst into laughter. To think that Wang Chong was still able to borrow strength from his iron sleeves despite being flung into the air. This was truly a pleasant surprise to him. Ever since the opening of the Kunwa training camp, this was the first time he had met someone who could exchange blows with him in such a manner. Pang! Facing Wang Chang's incomparably sharp sword, the instructor's aura surged, and his robes fluttered in the wind. Instead of dodging, his fingers moved as fast as lightning, dodging the sharp edge of the sword. Then, he flicked his 10 fingers on the body of the sword, striking relentlessly at Wang Chang's sword. His fingers were extremely heavy. Every move he made seemed light, but in reality, they were as heavy as a mountain. Regardless of how Wang Chong slashed or sliced, the sword was unable to reach his fingers, needless to say, his body. To be able to move his fingers so nimbly, it was truly a miracle. Inconceivable. Not too far away, a spectating student muttered to himself. He was completely dumbfounded by the sight before him. Initially, he was passing by the area to try his luck with another instructor, but he didn't expect to witness such a sight. The instructor's fingers were like an invisible fortress. No matter how fast Wang Chang's sword was, no matter how fast, whether it was hacking, slashing, slicing, or slicing, he was unable to break through the barrier of the instructor's fingers. This was the first time he had seen such a miraculous martial arts technique. Around him, there were many students who were as shocked as he was. In that instant, everyone had a feeling that this unprepossessing yet amiable and approachable instructor, who had been standing on the protruding rock for half a year, was probably the most powerful instructor in the entire Kanwa training camp. How can a student fight with an instructor to this extent? What kind of sword technique is this? He's borrowing the instructor's strength to fight back. He's like a maggot attached to the bone. There's no way to get rid of him. Amidst their astonishment, many people's gazes involuntarily shifted to Wang Chong. On this mountain, most of the battles were between candidates. The strongest would be selected and the best would be admitted. However, the person in front of them was actually challenging the instructor directly. Not only that, but he was also fighting with the instructor to this extent. Wang Chang's position fluctuated between the front and the back, the left and the right. That instructor flicked his fingers continuously, and most of the power of the heavenly lightning seemed to have been dissipated by him. To many people, this was an unimaginable feat, to think that Gongzi's strength has reached such a level. Zhao Jingdian's heart was in turmoil. This was the first time he had seen Wang Chong execute the single-character consecutive slash. The momentum of the sword was endless, and it was as though there was no end to it. Anyone who saw this swordsmanship would find it hard to forget, and it would leave a deep impression on them. However, Gongzi still won't be able to win. Zhao Jingdian frowned. Even though Wang Chong seemed to be doing well on the surface, Zhao Jingdian could still tell that Wang Chang's movements were erratic, and there were signs of him losing control of his movements. Furthermore, his meridians were also a little chaotic. Clearly, he was still under immense pressure from the instructor. Go! In the blink of an eye, there was an earth-shattering explosion. The instructor let out a roar, and his aura surged. His robes fluttered in the wind, and in an instant, an unstoppable surge of yuan qi erupted from his body like a tidal wave. In the air, Wang Chong was struck by this surge of origin energy, and his body trembled as he was sent flying. It was Wang Chong who reacted swiftly. Even though he was sent flying a dozen zhang away, he still executed the origin energy tier 7,000 gene descent to forcefully crash into the ground. He staggered several steps backward before stabilizing his body. Lad, your strength isn't too bad. I have been in the capital for several decades, and I have seen all kinds of martial arts. I have never seen a swordsmanship like yours before. Are you trying to create your own swordsmanship? The instructor stepped forward, and his long hair fluttered in the wind. Looking at Wang Chong, who was a dozen zhang away from him, his eyes lit up. Yes. Wang Chong chuckled. Clutching his chest with his left hand, he didn't deny it. This instructor was truly incredible. His single-character consecutive slash was able to subdue even the foreign invaders on the battlefield, but he was actually unable to deal with this instructor. After a swift exchange of blows, not only was he unable to break through the other party's defense, he was even jolted to the point where his blood and energy were in turmoil, and his stamina was greatly sapped as well. Interesting. Hearing Wang Chang's reply, the astonishment in the instructor's eyes deepened. To be able to create such a formidable swordsmanship at such a young age, it was truly inconceivable. For you to possess such talent at such a young age, it's truly astonishing. If possible, I would really like to take you under my wing. However, it's a pity that given your current strength, it's impossible for you to defeat me. Rules are rules, and I can't break them either. If you can't defeat me, you won't be able to pass the trial. You have already made up your mind, have you thought it through? Do you still want to continue? Yes. Why not? Unexpectedly, upon hearing those words, Wang Chong chuckled. His smile was clear and brimming with confidence, as though he wasn't affected by his previous defeat at all. Oh. Hearing that, the instructor's eyebrows twitched, a little surprised. Don't blame me for not reminding you. Just now, you were the one attacking, and I haven't taken the initiative to attack yet. Furthermore, I haven't used my full strength. I know. Wang Chong chuckled. The reason why he chose to use a sword wasn't a moment of foolishness. Only by using a sword could the other party refrain from attacking, and only then could he make up for the difference in strength between the two of them. More importantly, although the previous exchange ended in his defeat, Wang Chong had already obtained what he wanted from it. 10 directional lightning fingers. 8 directional blocking force. A thought flashed across Wang Chong's mind. If he wasn't wrong, the martial art that the instructor used was the 10 directional lightning fingers for his finger force, and the 8 directional blocking force for his palm force. These two secret arts were extremely profound and difficult to cultivate, and were high-level military secret arts that were extremely difficult to cultivate. Usually, they were for generals to cultivate, but there were very few successful cases. 10 directional lightning fingers wasn't just a finger art, it was also a type of inner strength, a technique. This martial art didn't just cultivate the fingers, but the inner strength of the entire body. The finger art was just a natural external manifestation of inner strength when it reached a certain level. 10 directional lightning fingers was both offensive and defensive. Once mastered, the fingers would be as hard as steel. On the battlefield, with the borrowed force, and without weapons, one could directly pierce through the opponent's profound armor. Tearing through metal with bare hands was just a small matter. In real cultivation, the 10 fingers were like 10 sharp swords, able to pierce through metal and crack stone, and destroy everything. Furthermore, 10 directional lightning fingers covered the entire body with energy, causing the speed of one's attack and movement to be incomparably fast. Therefore, those who cultivated this secret art didn't have to worry about their finger force being dodged. On the battlefield, those who cultivated this secret art were completely invincible killing machines in the form of humans. As for 8 directional blocking force, it was his simple slash. It looked light, but it was actually extremely heavy. Those who could master these two secret arts at the same time, on the battlefield, would be a bloodthirsty killing god, and the most ferocious general. Wherever they went, there would be rivers of blood. Although this person tried his best to conceal himself, he was still recognized by Wang Chong. This person isn't simple. Chapter 195. Wang Chong was far more knowledgeable about the unique skills of the military than other unique skills. Since he knew that his opponent was using the 10 directional lightning finger, the next step was much easier. Boom! Wang Chong swept his feet and a cloud of dust rose into the air, instantly covering his body. This move was so sudden that even the instructor raised his eyebrows in surprise. Bang! Very quickly, in the next moment, there was a flash of light, and a figure who had become one with his sword shot out from within. Again? Is it the same move? The instructor chuckled coldly. Without dodging, he allowed Wang Chong to strike him once more. However, the situation was different this time. Wang Chong did not go around to the back of the instructor, but went straight for him. Boom! 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 The sword and finger collided, creating a series of loud noises. Wang Chang's sword qi could not break through the instructor's 10-directional lightning finger. However, the situation was a little different this time. Front, top, bottom, left, right, lower. Wang Chang's attack sequence seemed to contain some kind of pattern. Kang. With a clear sword hum, Wang Chang changed his sword technique and suddenly became one with the sword. He summoned all his strength and pounced at the instructor's lower back. Ha, it's useless. The instructor smirked and suddenly turned around. His fingers moved like lightning, one hand holding the sword, the other grabbing at Wang Chang's palms. The difference in strength between the two was too great. Wang Chang's attack did not pose any threat to him at all. However, in the blink of an eye, just as the instructor's fingers were about to grab Wang Chang, something strange happened. Without any reason, the instructor's fingers suddenly stopped. Suddenly, his movements became countless times slower, as if he was out of yuan qi. It was just a small change, but the instructor's expression changed instantly. On the other side, Wang Chang seemed to have expected such a change. Qi. Wang Chang grasped the opportunity as he swung his sword. The 3-foot-long sword swept forward. Boom! A wave of powerful strength qi erupted from the instructor's body at almost the same time. The powerful force sent Wang Chang flying with his sword. When the battle ended, a piece of cloth fell from the instructor's waist. Boy, how did you do it? The instructor stared at Wang Chang with an incomparably awful expression. His temperament had always been the calm and collected type, but when Wang Chang cut off a piece of cloth soap from his waist, he could no longer maintain his composure. Instinct. Wang Chang smiled and spat out 2 words. He knew what the other party wanted to say. 10-directional thunderbolt fingers actually had a flaw. To be precise, it was because this unique skill was too difficult to practice. Its meridians were like a net that covered the entire body. Therefore, before reaching the great perfection, this unique skill would have a flaw. In the first exchange of blows, Wang Chang had already found out that the instructor's 10-directional thunderbolt fingers had a flaw. His strength qi had yet to be trained to the meridians at the right back of his waist, and the upper and lower meridians had yet to be completely opened up. Under normal circumstances, this kind of flaw was not a problem at all. However, as long as he followed a certain order and guided the yuan qi in his body according to a specific meridian and sequence, in the end, it would cause the yuan qi to stagnate at the right back of his waist. With the lack of yuan qi, a huge flaw would appear in his fist technique. However, this kind of thing was too shocking. Therefore, Wang Chang was not prepared to say it out loud. Instinct? The instructor seemed to be deep in thought. His furrowed eyebrows slowly relaxed as he accepted the explanation. In the world of martial arts, there were indeed some people who were talented and possessed extraordinary intuition. They were able to instantly find the flaws in their opponent's moves. If Wang Chang possessed such talent, it was no wonder what happened just now. To be able to cut off a piece of my robe with your intuition, you are indeed powerful. No matter what. You have passed this test. Thank you, instructor. Wang Chang was overjoyed and quickly bowed. You can wait at the side first. When it's time, I will bring you to familiarize yourself with the Kunwu training camp. In the future, I won't bring you too many people. You will have to familiarize yourselves with it. The instructor said. Wang Chang acknowledged and bowed before retreating. He felt much more relaxed now. After passing the test under this examiner, Wang Chang's biggest mission in the Kunwu training camp was completed. Gongzi, this person is too strong. I'm afraid it will be difficult for me to pass. When Wang Chang returned, Zhao Jingdian said with a frown. He could clearly see that even Wang Chang had a hard time winning. It would be even more difficult for him to pass. Don't be anxious. Wang Chang pondered for a moment before chuckling. Different people have different ways of passing the test. You won't be able to imitate my method. However, there might be other ways. Besides, didn't you notice? From the start to the end, this person has been suppressing his strength, never surpassing origin energy realm. This, Zhao Jingdian fell into deep thought. This person is at least a true martial realm expert. If he were to use his full strength, you can't possibly think that we would stand a chance, right? The so-called 3 chances were actually just a chance for us to pass. Otherwise, if he really doesn't want us to pass and attacks us, how can we pass? Wang Chong said. I understand. Zhao Jingdian immediately understood. This test was definitely difficult. At the very least, it wouldn't be easy to pass. However, it wasn't impossible. It just required some effort. Listen to me, Wang Chong pulled Zhao Jingdian over and whispered in his ear. Then, he patted his shoulders. This is all I can tell you. You'll have to rely on yourself for the rest. It wasn't easy to pass the test. Even though the current Zhao Jingdian wasn't the same Zhao Jingdian from his previous life, some things wouldn't change. His words might not be of much use to others, but Wang Chong believed that Zhao Jingdian would understand the meaning behind it. Gongzi, I understand. Zhao Jingdian nodded. Walking down the mountain, Zhao Jingdian didn't rush to challenge the other party. Instead, he stood at the outer circle of the test and stroked his chin with a contemplative look in his eyes. Instructor, I am Zhao Jingdian. I would like to give it a try. Zhao Jingdian walked over and bowed respectfully. He, what do you have to wave at me? Come at me. The instructor waved his hands, not minding Zhao Jingdian's actions. Even though Zhao Jingdian was a man of few words and appeared to be slow on the outside, he wasn't weak. Just like Wang Chong, he was an origin energy tier 7 expert. In Duke Zhou's lineage, the only one who could surpass him was probably Yi Yinping. It was precisely because Zhao Jingdian's cultivation wasn't weak that Wang Chong dared to allow him to give it a try. Boom! A cloud of dust flew up. Zhao Jingdian's fighting style was different from Wang Chong's. His fighting style was based on brute force, charging straight at the opponent without compromising on flexibility. In this aspect, Zhao Jingdian's aptitude was top-notch. At the very least, he wasn't too far off from Wang Chong's. Boom! 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 The two figures clashed with one another, and a few breaths later, a figure flew out from the dust like a broken kite. It was Zhao Jingdian. Do you still want to try? The instructor said with a faint smile. He had one hand behind his back and the other outstretched. His every movement had the bearing of an expert. Again. Zhao Jingdian wiped the blood from the corner of his lips and charged forward once more. This time, Zhao Jingdian's fighting style was clearly different from before. It was less brute force and more agile. However, he still couldn't escape the fate of being defeated. Boom! When Zhao Jingdian was sent flying once more, Wang Chong finally frowned. There were only 3 chances in the test, and Zhao Jingdian had already failed twice. If he were to fail once more, he wouldn't have another chance. Not only did I fail to help him, I might even be harming him instead. Wang Chong thought. He could sense that the instructor's strength was clearly higher than when he fought with him previously. It was clear that he was targeting Zhao Jingdian. The duo had been watching the battle by the side for a long time now, and their every action couldn't escape his eyes. This person was intending to give Zhao Jingdian a show of strength, determined not to let him pass. Zhao Jingdian, trample the enemy camp. Wang Chong suddenly rushed down the mountain. Wang! Hearing Wang Chong's words, Zhao Jingdian's body jolted. He abruptly turned around and stared at Wang Chong in disbelief, as though Wang Chong had just said something incredible. What is it? The instructor's eyebrows shot up as he glanced at Wang Chong in astonishment. Boom! At this moment, a brilliant light flashed, and Zhao Jingdian's origin energy burst forth. As though a ferocious tiger, he pounced forward. It was the same move and the same fighting style, but in the instructor's eyes, this familiar move seemed a little different. Boom! Just as Zhao Jingdian was about to be defeated once more, an abrupt change occurred. Zhao Jingdian's body jolted, and his aura surged. His speed surged, and in an instant, he split into two, then into three, leaving behind three afterimages on the spot. With a loud boom, he evaded the instructor's punches and headed straight for the latter's chest. Boom! A pair of steel fists flew forward and struck Zhao Jingdian's chest, stopping him from going all out. But at the same time, a pair of feet struck deeply into the instructor's chest. Boom! Zhao Jingdian crashed heavily onto the ground, and a mouthful of blood spurted from his mouth. On the other hand, the instructor was still in his final attack stance. Glancing at the two footprints on his chest, a bizarre expression appeared on his face. You've won. The instructor finally spoke. Even though Zhao Jingdian's kick was nothing more than an itch to him, it didn't hurt him at all. Even so, he still lost in this move. He didn't expect Zhao Jingdian to use such a bizarre move to evade his defense and use a mutually destructive fighting style. Even though it was cheating, Zhao Jingdian had indeed left two footprints on his chest. Going by the rules, it was his loss. This is the method you taught him? The instructor looked at the approaching Wang Chong and asked helplessly. Yes. Wang Chong didn't deny it. Walking over, he passed a recovery pill to Zhao Jingdian. This was what he bought from Liu Zhizhang. Chapter 196. Let's go. I'll help you to the side to rest. Wang Chong helped Zhao Jingdian to the side. After consuming a pill and resting for a moment, Zhao Jingdian's complexion looked much better than before. Gongzi, how did you know that I'm practicing horse trampling on the barracks? Seeing that there was no one around and that he was a distance away from the instructor, Zhao Jingdian couldn't help but ask. Horse trampling on the barracks was an ultimate technique of the Zhao clan. In a short period of time, one's speed would increase exponentially, allowing him to split into three phantoms, allowing him to easily breach the other party's defense. While the other party's attention was focused on him, the crux of horse trampling on the barracks lay in his feet. All of his strength was gathered on his feet. That instructor fell for Zhao Jingdian's trick by a single move, and the latter kicked him in the chest. However, although this move was unique and could be used to break through the defense of powerful opponents, and it could easily display its miraculous effects when the opponent was unprepared, the difficulty of cultivating it also increased exponentially. There were very few people from the Zhao clan who succeeded in cultivating it. Zhao Jingdian had been secretly practicing horse trampling on the barracks, and even his grandfather wasn't aware of this. However, Zhao Jingdian hadn't fully mastered horse trampling on the barracks, so he had never thought of using it in a real battle. Most of the blood that he spat out was due to the backlash of his internal energy. Ha! My grandfather has mentioned the Zhao clan's horse trampling on the barracks to me before. I'm guessing that since you're already at Origin Energy Tier 7, you should have started practicing it. Wang Chong said. So it's Duke Jiu. Zhao Jingdian was taken aback for a moment before realization dawned on him. As long as Duke Jiu was involved in any matter, it wouldn't be surprising. He might be able to hide the fact that he was practicing horse trampling on the barracks from others, but he might not be able to hide it from Duke Jiu. Seeing Zhao Jingdian's expression, Wang Chong couldn't help but chuckle inside. There was no need for him to ask his grandfather about Zhao Jingdian's matter. The two of them had battled for their entire lives, and he couldn't be more familiar with the other party's martial arts. He could tell with a single glance whether Zhao Jingdian had cultivated horse trampling on the barracks or not. There's a reason why I insisted that you join him. Although the people who graduate from the training camp are all elites in the future, it's not difficult for them to achieve meteoric success. But this person is different. In the future, when we go out, we will immediately be promoted to the rank of lieutenant and can directly lead troops into battle. We will have fewer years to struggle than others. You'll know that this mouthful of blood was worth it in the future. Ah! Zhao Jingdian raised his head in shock. Wang Chong nodded and didn't say anything. Those who learned the art of commanding were different from others. Those who graduated from this training camp, including those from Shenwei and Longwei, might start off as a corporal or a sergeant. However, it was different for those who learned the art of commanding. The moment they left the academy, they were at the rank of lieutenant. Their starting point was completely different from others. This was also the reason why Wang Chong insisted on being under his name. In his previous life, he spent most of his time in obscurity. It was only toward the end of his life that he caught the eye of the elders and was promoted to the position of the Grand Marshal of the Central Plains. However, he had already missed out on too many things back then. Thus, in this life, Wang Chong didn't want to repeat the same mistake. That was why he wanted to join that instructor. Lieutenant was a good starting point. Under normal circumstances, it would take at least 1 to 2 years for others to rise from an ordinary infantryman to a lieutenant. But to Wang Chong, he didn't lack anything other than time. The rank of a lieutenant could save him a lot of time. The examination will be over soon. You should rest here first. I'll go out for a walk. Wang Chong bade farewell to Zhao Jingdian before heading down the mountain. In Wang Chong's eyes, this batch of Kunwu training camp was a boundless treasure trove. There were too many future great generals here. If he operated it well and borrowed their strength, he might be able to change the future Tang dynasty. The future Grand Marshal of the Central Plains and a future great general. This was a force that no one could ignore. It was enough to change many things. Wang Chong quickly disappeared into the crowd. At the same time, a few figures stood out from the crowd. Let's go and give it a try. Among the crowd, Wang Chong wasn't the only one who was interested in joining the instructor's faction. Wang Chong had only observed for an hour, but there were others who had been observing for several hours. It was impossible for a student to defeat an instructor. Everyone thought that it was hopeless. However, the battle between Wang Chong and Zhao Jingdian had shown them too much. Wang Chong didn't know about the changes on the mountain. At this moment, he was focused on other things. The future had already changed, and the current Kunwu training camp was vastly different from what he remembered it to be. At the very least, there weren't so many Saiyans who joined this place back then. Because of him, a lot of things had changed. However, the only fortunate thing was that correspondingly, the number of people recruited by Kunwu training camp had increased by a lot. This also meant that his influence on the future had become negligible. Those great generals of the Tang dynasty who were supposed to appear here would still appear here in the end. This was the most gratifying thing. On the majestic mountain, the crowd was surging. Everyone was looking for the instructor and worrying about the test. However, Wang Chong's attention was on the crowd. His eyes constantly scanned through them. Suddenly, a figure walking around in the crowd attracted Wang Chong's attention. This person had a large bow on his back. He was walking around a few imperial guards, as if he didn't know what to do. It's him. Wang Chong suddenly laughed in his heart. Looking at the symbolic large bow, Wang Chong vaguely thought of a person. It was said that in Kunwu training camp, there was a newcomer. Because the place he came from was very remote and it was his first time entering the capital, he couldn't tell the difference between the imperial guards on the mountain and the instructors at all. As a result, he spent a lot of time walking around those imperial guards, trying to find them to take the test. Those imperial guards had already told him that they were not instructors and that the instructors were on the mountain. In the end, this person was just an imperial guard at the bottom of the mountain. When he was switched to the imperial guard at a slightly higher place on the mountain, he still walked around those imperial guards. This matter was later spread as a joke in Kunwu training camp and made a lot of jokes. However, although he seemed to be muddle-headed, the strength of this person was completely inversely proportional to the jokes he made. The large bow on his back was the best proof. It was said that this person could accurately shoot an apple on a tree at the top of the mountain from several miles away with one arrow. Furthermore, the archers that he led were the sharpest troops on the battlefield. Seeing that the man was still buzzing around like a housefly, Wang Chong faintly smiled and quickly walked away. "Brother, may I know how I should address you?" Wang Chong walked over and asked. Upon walking closer, he realized that the person was around 16 to 17 years old, and he was dressed in a beast skin robe, looking just like a hunter in the mountains. "This. I am Qin Burang. It was the governor of Huainan who recommended me here." The young hunter had an uneasy expression on his face. "It's really him." Wang Chong was astonished. Without a doubt, it should be him. Even his name matched. However, Wang Chong didn't expect the other party to be a hunter. It was no wonder why he didn't bother asking around despite so many people passing by. It was probably because he rarely interacted with others. "Are you looking for the instructor who is taking the test?" Wang Chong asked. "Why yes, but I can't find him." "Is the test over?" By the end, Qin Burang was on the verge of tears. Hearing those words, Wang Chong almost burst out laughing. This person was able to pass the previous tests, so logically speaking, he should know a little. It seemed like this was his first time traveling and he had no experience in this aspect. Don't worry. The test is still far from over. How about this? Since you are taking the test, let me bring you there." Wang Chong said. "Ah! That's great." The young man was overjoyed. He looked at Wang Chong with gratitude. Ever since he entered the Kunwa training camp, this was the first time someone had taken the initiative to talk to him. Wang Chong didn't say much and led him to the top of the mountain. "The people you asked were all from the Imperial Army. The real instructors are at the top of the mountain. Although their temperaments are similar, they are different. Furthermore, the clothes they wear are different. All the Imperial Army members are wearing armor. Although the instructors are also wearing armor, you can tell that they are different." Ah! The look of realization on Qin Burang's face was hilarious. Walking at the back, Qin Burang seemed to be curious about everything. Wang Chong finally believed that it was inevitable for him to make a fool out of himself. "You are practicing archery, right? If you wish to learn archery, I can recommend an instructor. He specializes in teaching archery." Wang Chong said. All right." Qin Burang agreed without hesitation. He was completely obedient to Wang Chong, appearing to be extremely trustworthy. After interacting with him for a while, Wang Chong had a good impression of him. This person had just come out of the mountains, and his body still maintained a simple and natural aura like that of the wilderness. Such an aura naturally made people feel close to him. "Right, I still don't know how I should address you." Qin Burang suddenly recalled something and patted his head. "My name is Wang Chong." "Ah!" Qin Burang abruptly stopped in his tracks. He stared at Wang Chong with widened eyes. "Could it be that, you are?" Staring at Wang Chong, Qin Burang stammered, unable to form a complete sentence. Even though he was a hunter in the mountains, he had heard of the name Wang Chong before. He didn't expect that the person who guided him and helped him would be Wang Chong. Wang Chong smiled and nodded. The benefits that the regional commander's incident had brought him were far greater than he had imagined. This was something that Wang Chong couldn't have imagined. This also made it easier for Wang Chong to carry out his plan. Kunwa training camp is only this big. If you have time, come and look for me. Maybe we can exchange some pointers. Wang Chong sent an invitation to Qin Burang. No problem, no problem. Chapter 197. Be it in his previous life or his current life, Wang Chong wasn't known for his archery. In this aspect, Wang Chong couldn't offer Chen Rang any pointers. However, the archery skills in Wang Chong's previous life might be of some help to Qin Burang and help him reach higher realms. After separating from Qin Burang, Wang Chong circled around the crowd a few more times before returning to the top of the mountain. However, to Wang Chang's surprise, when he returned to the top of the mountain, there were a few more figures around him and Zhao Jingdian. What's going on? Wang Chong walked over and asked softly. Not long after you left, these people came. They are all extremely powerful. I saw them from the side, and their cultivation is above Origin Energy Tier 7. They aren't any weaker than us. Furthermore, they're the same as me, using a method where both sides are injured. Zhao Jingdian said. After Wang Chong left, he had remained here and had clearly seen everything that had happened. Oh. Hearing Zhao Jingdian's recount of the tournament, Wang Chong couldn't help but chuckle. There's nothing to be surprised about. There are quite a few smart people here. When we were conducting the examination, they were probably by the side. Since we know that we used a mutually destructive method, they should know as well. Never underestimate others. Just from hearing Zhao Jingdian's recount, Wang Chong could tell that these people used the same method as Zhao Jingdian. Furthermore, to use such a method right from the start without any probing, it was clear that they were confident. If he hadn't witnessed the battle between Zhao Jingdian and the instructor, he wouldn't have dared to do so. These two aren't too bad. Their strength isn't much higher than ours. But that person. I feel that he's even more formidable than Gongzi. Zhao Jingdian said fearfully. Oh. Wang Chang's eyebrows shot up, and a grim expression appeared on his face. Zhao Jingdian had seen him cross blows with the instructor, and he wasn't the kind of person to exaggerate things. If Zhao Jingdian said that this person was even more formidable than him, then he really did feel that this was the case. Who are you talking about? That man. Zhao Jingdian stretched out a finger and pointed behind the instructor. Following the direction of his finger, Wang Chong realized that he had missed a figure just now. This person was standing behind the instructor, at least 100 feet away. As a result, when Wang Chong first saw it, he thought it was another spectating student. Moreover, this person's expression was grave and stern, and his aura was like ice and snow. Standing in the crowd, he was like a crane in a flock of chickens, causing people to involuntarily feel a sense of fear and alienation. There was not a single soul within 3 feet of him. The fact that the crowd had automatically moved away from him was enough to explain the problem. Is that him? Wang Chang's eyebrows twitched in surprise. That person is extremely formidable. I feel that his cultivation is at least at Origin Energy Tier 8, close to Origin Energy Tier 9. Moreover, when this person fought with the instructor actually couldn't defend against him and was injured by him, leaving a scratch on his body. Zhao Jingdian's fearful voice sounded in Wang Chang's ears. Wang Chong was aware of Zhao Jingdian's strength. To be able to leave such a fearful feeling in the other party, it was clear that the other party's strength was extraordinary. However, this wasn't what Wang Chong was concerned about. Many thoughts were flashing through his mind. Wang Chong knew who that person was. His name was Su Hanshan. Of the great generals who graduated from the Kunwu training camp, he was definitely one of the most outstanding ones. In the starry sky of the empire, he was one of the few publicly acknowledged talents of the 3 great training camps who could become a great general. But in his life, he only possessed the potential to become a great general. He wasn't able to become a great general like Zhang Shougue, Wang Zhongxi, or Gao Xianji. The outside world knew very little about Su Hanshan. Other than knowing that he graduated from the Kunwu training camp, nothing else was known. To think that he would be his student as well. Wang Chong muttered to himself. As he stared at that figure 10 some zhang away, Wang Chong had a complicated expression on his face. He had an indescribable feeling. Su Hanshan had the potential to become an imperial great general. In the Kunwu training camp, he was definitely one of the best students. In the future, the army that he would personally train and lead would be the best in the world at breaking through the empire's defenses. No matter how many echelons there were, how many layers of defenses there were, the army that Su Hanshan led would be like a sharp knife, stabbing deep into the enemy's steel walls and ruthlessly tearing them apart. On the battlefield, the army that Su Hanshan led was an army that would strike fear into the hearts of both foreign races and foreign countries. The army that he had trained could fight to the death. No matter how powerful the enemy's charge, no matter how disadvantageous the situation, his army would remain calm and unflustered. And Su Hanshan had always been able to advance and retreat with his subordinates, share life and death with them. In terms of conviction, no army could be more resolute than Su Hanshan's army. Alas, there was no such thing as a perfect man. Su Hanshan's personality was far too independent, and this personality would eventually lead to his failure. Just like what Wang Chong was witnessing right now, Su Hanshan was far too aloof. Even if he was just casually standing there, he would create a large distance between him and others, giving off a distant feeling. In other words, he was far too unsociable. In the army, Su Hanshan didn't get along with anyone. Even though they had all graduated from the Kunwa training camp, Su Hanshan didn't have much of a relationship with them. On the battlefield, Su Hanshan didn't need the support of others. His personality was far too proud, and he was unwilling to accept the help of others. On the battlefield of the empire, no one could rely on their own strength to change the course of the battle. Back then, Wang Chong couldn't do it, and Su Hanshan was no different. His character had determined his final outcome. Together with his world-famous army, he disappeared from the chaotic battlefield. I didn't think that I would meet him here. Wang Chong thought, his mind in turmoil. Fate was inconceivable. The two lone wolves with similar personalities met here. Wang Chong needed help, but he wasn't able to receive it. Thus, he became a lone wolf in the apocalyptic divine continent. On the other hand, Su Hanshan's personality made him unwilling to accept help. Thus, he became a lone wolf. As he looked at this future great general who would die prematurely, Wang Chong suddenly knew what he had to do. All right. On the protruding boulder, the instructor finally spoke, attracting everyone's attention. Today's examination has come to an end. Initially, we only wanted to recruit 2 to 3 people, but we ended up recruiting 5. That's enough. Remember, my name is Xiao Qianqiu. From now on, I'll be your teacher. Now, there's no need to bother about the others. At the very least, our examination has come to an end. Follow me. I'll bring you to familiarize yourselves with the training camp. Other than Wang Chong, who already knew his name, the others turned to look at him. This was the first time they were hearing the name of this instructor. So his surname is Xiao as well. Of all of them, Xiao Jingdian was the most surprised. Don't think too much, let's go. Wang Chong patted Xiao Jingdian's shoulder with a smile. Turning back to take a look, the examinees on the mountain were no longer as densely packed as before. Clearly, the first day of recruitment was coming to an end. Whistle. Wang Chong suddenly whistled toward the foot of the mountain, and soon, the neighing of Nei's colt sounded. At the foot of the mountain, dust billowed, and a streak of dark green smoke shot over. In just a moment, a small colt roughly the same height as Wang Chong dashed out from the dust cloud. Its mane fluttered in the wind, and it stuck out its tongue excitedly, licking Wang Chong's face. All right, little shadow. Stop licking, stop licking. Wang Chong stroked the long, dark green mane of the white-hoofed shadow. Tickled by it, he couldn't help but chuckle. Even though it had only been with Wang Chong for a few days, this white-hoofed shadow was extremely lively and intimate with Wang Chong. So you already have your own steed. That's great. Groom it well and don't waste such a good spirit colt. In the future, it will be your second life. A deep voice came from behind him, and when Wang Chong turned his head, he saw 4 or 5 pairs of eyes staring at him with strange expressions. The one who spoke was Instructor Xiao Qianqiu. None of them were fools. With a single look, they could tell that Wang Chong's steed was extraordinary. To have such a steed right after entering the training camp, this was something that many would be envious of. Even so, Xiao Qianqiu didn't say much about it. He beckoned for the others to head forward. From the examination area to the peak of the mountain, there was a fence, and behind the fence, there were Imperial Army soldiers standing guard. Only those who had passed the examination were qualified to enter the training camp on the mountain. Flashing his token, Zhao Qianqiu led the group into the training camp at the peak of the mountain without any obstruction. The Kunwu training camp is divided into 4 sections, and the 4 bases are located around the training area. They are the Azure Dragon, White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, and Black Tortoise. Based on the rank of the instructors, the bases are divided into 4 sections. Of which, the Vermilion Bird base is the most unique. There's no basis for categorization, and there's no hierarchy there either. That's where the ladies live. The reason why I'm telling you all this is to warn you not to peep on the ladies and sneak into the Vermilion Bird base. I know that some of you will definitely do so in the future. Hearing the instructor's ambiguous words, the group couldn't help but chuckle. This instructor is interesting. He doesn't seem to be as rigid as I thought. Wang Chong thought. You'll definitely be expelled if you peep on ladies. However, this isn't the reason why I'm warning you all. There are still some formidable ladies in the Vermilion Bird base. Even though you all aren't weak, you might not be a match for them. For some reason, upon hearing Zhao Qianqiu's words, Wang Chong and Zhao Jingdian immediately thought of little Marchioness Yin Weiliang. In this aspect, Zhao Qianqiu wasn't exaggerating at all. Alright, I'll bring you all to familiarize yourself with the training grounds. This is also the place where you'll come the most in the future. Chapter 198. The 3 Great Training Camps is a major affair of the royal court, as well as an important matter that the Holy Emperor pays close attention to. There's one thing that you need to know about this matter. The 3 Great Training Camps are prepared for the army. The royal court isn't training you so that you can strut around in the capital. Rather, it's to send you into the army so that you can become the backbone of the empire. Thus, there are some things that you need to know in advance. Besides, given your current cultivation realm, it's about time for you to come into contact with this matter. Standing at the edge of an archery training ground surrounded by wooden poles, Zhao Qianqiu slowly explained to the crowd. The military can be divided into 3 categories: archers, infantrymen, and cavalrymen. These are the occupations that you will have to choose in the future. Archers correspond to the dexterity of martial arts. Zhao Qianqiu pointed to a student at the far end of the training ground. Grabbing an arrow in his hand, that person drew his bow and released it abruptly. Xiu xiu xiu. In the blink of an eye, 12 arrows shot forth like a torrential rain. In the blink of an eye, that person had released at least 12 arrows. 12 sharp arrows drew different trajectories in the air and accurately hit 12 different wooden puppets 50 meters away from them. Each of the 12 arrows pierced deep into the wooden puppet's body. Xiu xiu xiu. At the same time, another student drew his bow, and this time, 14 arrows rained down on the same wooden dolls from different directions. All of the arrows were aimed at the vitals of the wooden dolls. Upon seeing this sight, everyone's heart skipped a beat. This is dexterity. Martial artists who cultivate dexterity-type cultivation techniques are able to move several times faster than others. Some of them are even able to move more than 10 times faster than others. In other words, in a head-on brawl, regardless of strength, if you punch an agile martial artist, he will be able to return 2, 3, or even more punches to you. On the battlefield, these agile martial artists are most suited to be archers. Archers, when paired with a martial artist's speed, are able to unleash a torrent of arrows in a short period of time. It's rumored that the most formidable master archers of the Eastern and Western Turkic Khaganates are able to simultaneously shoot 50 rabbits running through the grass from several li away, and they even hit the exact same spot. In other words, on the battlefield, he can shoot down 50 of our elite infantries in the blink of an eye. If there were 10 godly archers, you can imagine how many infantrymen would fall in an instant. If there were more, 50, 100, or even more, our front line would start to collapse. However, although the sharpshooters of the Eastern and Western Turkic Khaganates are the most powerful, in this world, the most powerful archers are from our Tang dynasty. Do you know why? At this point, Zhao Qianqiu suddenly paused and smiled at the crowd. Crossbow, armor, and arrows. Zhao Jingdian said in deep thought. Smart. Because our Tang dynasty has the best bows and arrows in the world, the sharpest arrows, and the armor to protect our soldiers. Zhao Qianqiu praised. Standing by the side, Wang Chong inconspicuously frowned. In that instant, he recalled the matter that Elder Yi and Duke of Hu had mentioned. In the past few decades, the Tang dynasty had been trading with the rest of the world, and the Eastern and Western Turkic Khaganates had made use of this opportunity to amass a large amount of steel, black iron, arrows, and armor. This amount of time was sufficient for them to forge a large amount of armor and sharp arrows. Even though he had reminded Elder Yi and the others to make use of tariffs to control the outflow of steel, there was nothing they could do about it. Even though Zhao Qianqiu had reminded Elder Yi and the others to make use of tariffs to control the outflow of steel, there was nothing they could do about it. Zhao Qianqiu must have intentionally omitted this information to prevent fear from striking a blow to everyone's confidence. Wang Chong thought. Intentionally omitting a portion of the truth, Wang Chong couldn't tell if this was a good or bad thing. Only master archers are capable of dealing with master archers. Thus, the empire has always placed great emphasis on grooming master archers. Zhao Qianqiu continued. Strength, speed, and dexterity, these are the three main categories of martial arts. Dexterity corresponds to archers, who are able to shoot dozens of arrows in a single breath. Speed corresponds to cavalry. Zhao Qianqiu took a few steps forward. In the middle of a massive training ground, a few examinees were riding on two pitch-black armored war steeds. They galloped swiftly along the training ground. There were many wooden stumps in the training ground, and they were arranged in a dense formation. These examinees weaved through the narrow gaps between the wooden stumps as one, but their speed didn't slow down in the slightest. The wooden swords in their hands pierced through the wooden stumps non-stop, and every single time, they would accurately strike the same spot on the wooden stumps. Looks like there are quite a few good seedlings in this batch's Kunwu training camp. Standing at the periphery of the training ground, Zhao Qianqiu saw an examinee leaving a mark on the wooden stumps of the same height and same spot, and he couldn't help but praise. One of the advantages of the steel cavalry is their speed. They come and go like the wind, and their mobility is great. The second advantage is the power of their charge. Zhao Qianqiu suddenly gestured to one of the instructors on the training ground. Upon seeing this, the latter chuckled. Zhao Qianqiu, I'll say this first. I'll smash this rock. Tonight, go and get one for yourself and bring it up. Cut the crap, are you going to do it or not? Zhao Qianqiu reprimanded jokingly. Clearly, the two of them were familiar with one another. Forget it, on account that you're my student, I'll give in to you. The instructor waved his hands helplessly before pulling down his helmet. Then, he slowly turned his spear around and aimed it in another direction. Following the direction of his spear, the crowd finally saw a massive boulder around the height of two grown men 50 zhang away. It's heavy. It's Xuanwu Rock. This boulder must weigh at least 4,000 to 5,000 jin. Wang Chong immediately estimated the weight of the boulder. He had noticed this boulder when he first arrived, but he didn't pay it much heed, thinking that it was some kind of decoration. But from the looks of it now, it seemed to be a practice target for cavalry. Boom! Seated on the back of his steed, the instructor and his steed were donned in a heavy black armor. He exuded a deep killing intent, reminiscent of a demonic god who had walked out from the depths of hell. The warhorse sneezed and suddenly leaped forward, like a bolt of lightning, leaving behind countless afterimages in the void. Boom! Before anyone could react, they heard an earth-shattering sound in the distance. The earth quaked, and 50 zhang away, the 4 to 5,000 Jin Xuanwu rock suddenly shattered into pieces. Innumerable fragments flew into the sky like a rain of petals before exploding violently. In that instant, everyone was dumbfounded. Even from a distance of several dozen zhang away, the violent gale caused by the explosion left a stinging sensation on the faces of the crowd. Neigh! The warhorse neighed. Amidst the smoke and dust, the man and the horse's aura fluttered as they slowly revealed themselves. Under the contrast of the dust and stone fragments in the air, they looked like gods. Zhao Qianqiu, remember to bring a Xuanwu mound over tonight. This Xuanwu mound is for training, so I'll put it on your tab. As the instructor spoke, he leaped onto his horse, flipped over the fence made of wooden stakes, and disappeared from the foot of the mountain in an instant. Did you see that? This is the might of the charge of a steel cavalry. An Origin Energy Tier 5 martial artist under the coordination of a steel cavalry can easily exert the might of an Origin Energy Tier 8 pinnacle cultivator. And this is just a conservative estimate. A Rank 5 True Martial Realm Cavalry Corps could easily clean up a Rank 7 True Martial Realm Infantry Corps in a joint charge on the battlefield. This is the might of a steel cavalry. Be it the Eastern and Western Turkic Khaganate, Goguryeo Empire, Uzun Empire, Irais Mengshi Zhao. Even Anshi's Karak Spazinu and Abbasid Caliphate, all of them have groomed a large steel cavalry unit. On the battlefield, the might of a single steel cavalry unit is negligible, but a steel cavalry unit will always be the nightmare of any formation, as well as the greatest threat you will face on the battlefield in the future. When a large group of armored cavalry charges, they can definitely tear apart any phalanx. On top of that, just like archers, only cavalry can deal with cavalry. Thus, the Empire has placed great importance on the grooming of a steel cavalry unit. Zhao Qianqiu said. Hearing those words, Wang Chong frowned indiscernibly, but he didn't say anything. The might of a steel cavalry charge was indeed formidable. But to Wang Chong, it wasn't something that he couldn't deal with. The current empire was still stuck at the level where a steel cavalry charge could deal with a steel cavalry charge. But when he became the Grand Marshal of the Central Plains and commanded the army, a steel cavalry charge wasn't a problem at all. At the very least, it wasn't just cavalry that could deal with cavalry. Other than archers and cavalry, the rest are infantrymen. This is the largest military branch of our Tang dynasty. Just like what you are seeing right now. Oblivious to what Wang Chong was thinking, Zhao Qianqiu had already arrived at the final zone of the training grounds. Following his gaze, the crowd saw a large number of students fighting with one another in the massive training ground. The archer zone, cavalry zone, and infantryman zone. Of the three major training zones, this was the only one with the largest number of students. Here, everyone used a wide variety of weapons, and their martial arts were also different. Their fighting styles were also not the same. Compared to the archers and the cavalry charge, the combat and training here were much more plentiful. Infantrymen are all about strength. You don't have to be skilled in horsemanship or archery, but as long as you possess strength, you will be a powerful infantryman. Of the three major military branches, infantrymen have the lowest requirements. Of the three major military branches, infantrymen have always suffered the highest casualty rate. However, things are different in our current dynasty. From the Han to the Sui, and now to our current dynasty, the infantrymen of our Tang dynasty can be said to be the strongest in history. In the entire world, our Tang dynasty's cavalry is no match for the Uzun, and our archery is no match for the Eastern and Western Turks. However, our infantrymen are the strongest. You have to remember that our Tang dynasty has never been a single military branch. When our archers counter the other party's archers and our cavalry counter the other party's cavalry, it will be our infantrymen who rule the world. Hearing those words, a commotion broke out in the surroundings. Even the examinees who were passing by couldn't help but chuckle upon hearing those words. Indeed, the infantrymen of the Tang dynasty were the most formidable in the world. Be it archers or cavalry, once an army of infantrymen were allowed to get close to them and engage them in melee combat, it would be a one-sided slaughter. Thus, even though infantrymen couldn't compare to archers or cavalry, the Tang dynasty still maintained a massive army of infantrymen. Chapter 199. Before Origin Energy Tier 6, one's tendons, bones, skin, flesh, and internal organs are all trained. However, upon reaching Origin Energy Tier 6, one will be able to cultivate strength, speed, and dexterity cultivation techniques. The different types of cultivation techniques will determine whether you will be an infantryman, cavalry, or archer on the battlefield. There are all kinds of cultivation techniques in the training camp. You can learn them for free. However, of the strength, speed, and dexterity cultivation techniques, you can choose any one or two of them. I don't recommend you to learn all three at the same time. Don't bite off more than you can chew. Of course, there are some who learn all three at the same time. However, for most people, the more cultivation techniques they learn, the slower their progress will be. Follow me. Below us is the cultivation zone. Zhao Qianqiu beckoned and led the group across the vast cultivation zone. After the cultivation zone was the cultivation zone. So this is what we saw at the foot of the mountain. Zhao Jingdian said. Wang Chong nodded. Lifting his gaze, he looked at the massive flag that was nearly 100 zhang long. The massive Kunwu word on the flag was extremely eye-catching. This huge flag tent was the training area. The massive palaces were the cultivation rooms. Follow me. With Zhao Qianqiu leading the way, the group followed behind him and stepped into the center of the palaces. Walking in, Wang Chong realized that the palaces were made of metal. The ground was abnormally smooth, reminiscent of a mirror. There were many inscriptions on the ground. Wang Chong realized that even though it was only the first day, many of the students who had passed the examination were already seated on the ground and cultivating. The ground here is made of metal, and there are qi-gathering inscriptions on it. Every single spot is a small qi-gathering formation. From now on, you will be able to cultivate here every day. Cultivating here will be much faster than cultivating in other places. Zhao Qianqiu led the group through the cultivation rooms. Beyond the cultivation rooms is the cultivation technique zone. In the depths of the training area, more than a dozen fully armed Imperial Army soldiers stood in a row, separating the training area from the rear. They guarded the front of a palace. The cultivation techniques in the cultivation zone are categorized according to their cultivation realm. Origin Energy Tier 6 martial arts were divided into different regions. Origin Energy Tier 7 martial arts were divided into another region. Origin Energy Tier 8 martial arts were divided into another region. In the future, all you have to do is to choose the cultivation techniques according to your cultivation realm. The cultivation techniques here are reserved for the elites of the army, and it's difficult for you to learn them outside. However, as my students, you are different from others. You'll understand this in the future. Other than Wang Chong, who already knew, everyone else was confused. But Zhao Qianqiu didn't say anything. After which, Zhao Qianqiu brought everyone around to familiarize themselves with the area, and this was the end of the lecture. Some of you might already know this, but there are some who are still not. But I will say it one more time. Beneath a massive and lush scholar tree at the peak of the mountain, Zhao Qianqiu began his final lecture. Origin Energy Tier 1, and you will, and speed, and cultivation techniques, and you can. Only upon reaching Origin Energy Tier 6 will you be able to release your inner qi, forming a ring of stellar energy around your body. Only upon reaching Origin Energy Tier 9 will you be able to release your inner qi and form a ring of stellar energy around your body, just like this. Zhao Qianqiu's feet jolted, and Wang, a milky white ring of origin energy burst forth from beneath his feet. This ring of stellar energy didn't seem to be anything special, but regardless of whether it was Wang Chong, Zhao Jingdian, or the others, a grim expression appeared on their faces. From this ring of stellar energy, Everyone could sense an incredible strength, something that Zhao Qianqiu had never displayed before. Clearly, Zhao Qianqiu hadn't exerted his full strength. By releasing one's inner qi outside one's body, one's origin energy will be able to take on many forms, just like this. Zhao Qianqiu grabbed downward, and the milky white ring of stellar energy beneath his feet rippled. A powerful surge of origin energy burst forth from it, and it condensed in Zhao Qianqiu's palm into the shape of a lion. Under Zhao Qianqiu's control, the stellar energy began to morph into the form of a tiger, leopard, and wolf. Controlling one's origin energy freely isn't something that can be matched up with mere fists, kicks, or weapons. Thus, you must be wary of origin energy Tier 9 experts in the future. Such experts are extremely formidable, and you won't be able to deal with them easily. As Zhao Qianqiu spoke, he raised his palm, and the lion flew forward. Boom! Several hundred meters away, earth and stone flew violently, and dust filled the air, covering the sky and covering the earth. Everyone couldn't help but shudder in fear. Beyond Origin Energy Tier 9, you will be able to break through the bottleneck and reach the true martial realm. Origin energy will gather outside your body and form a halo. However, that's a matter for the future. After explaining all of this, Zhao Qianqiu left. Wang Chong, is this Wang Gongzi? Almost at the same instant that Zhao Qianqiu left, several figures walked up to Wang Chong and bowed deeply before Wang Chong. I am Zhuang Zhengping. I am Qi Weiqi. Paying respects to Gongzi. These two were none other than the other two examinees who had passed the examination just like Wang Chong and Zhao Jingdian and joined Zhao Qianqiu. From the bottom of the mountain to the top, the two of them had remained silent. It was only after Zhao Qianqiu had left that they took the initiative to pay a visit. Are you from the Zhuang clan and Qi clan? Wang Chong stared at the duo. That's right. The two of them bowed very politely. Wang Chong didn't say a word, only assessing the duo. The Zhuang clan and Qi clan were two of the largest clans in the capital, and their strength far surpassed that of ordinary clans. These two clans were extremely influential, and their business spanned across the empire. They wielded considerable influence in the military as well. The Zhuang clan had more than 100 years of history, and they had members all over the military, holding various positions. They wielded considerable influence in the military. The members of the Zhuang clan were known for their bravery, and the Zhuang clan steel cavalry was extremely famous in the empire as well. As for the Qi clan, its reputation was slightly beneath that of the Zhuang clan. However, there were many experts in the clan. The experts of the Qi clan were known for their valiant prowess on the battlefield, and the shadows of their experts could be seen on the front lines. The most unique aspect of the Qi clan was their steel guards. Whenever a member of the Qi clan stepped onto the battlefield, there would be quite a number of Qi clan steel guards by his side. These Qi clan steel guards were dressed in Xian metal armor that weighed 300 to 400 jin, and they wielded massive axes that were taller than a grown man. Most of the time, they would be able to tear an opening in the enemy's defenses easily. Even though these two clans couldn't compare to the Wang clan, which was a clan of generals and ministers, they were still top-notch clans in the capital. The fact that these two were able to pass through Zhao Qianqiu's assault showed how powerful they were. Given the strength of the Zhuang clan and Qi clan, shouldn't they be in the Longwei and Xinwei camps? Wang Chong asked with narrowed eyes. To tell you the truth, we heard that Gongzi is in the Kunwu training camp, so we came here. Our Zhuang clan and Qi clan have always been impressed by Gongzi's righteousness. We hope that we can get closer to Gongzi in the future. Zhuang Zhengping and Qi Weiqi replied respectfully. Given their strength, they weren't too far off from the current Wang Chong and Zhao Jingdian. What they were truly fearful of was the massive power standing behind Wang Chong. The Wang clan was a clan of ministers and generals, and Duke Jiu was a meritorious subject who had won the favor and trust of the Holy Emperor. Other than the Wang clan itself, there was also the King of Song, the officials of the royal court, the Protector Generals and Protector Generals of the borders, and many other conferred generals and generals. It could be said that the storm not too long ago had allowed many people to see the influence of the Wang clan. This kind of influence spread far and wide, from within the imperial court to outside, and then to the military world. Even behemoths like the Zhuang clan and Wei clan were deeply fearful of the Wang clan. From this incident, one could foresee that even if Duke Jiao were to pass away, the Wang clan's fortune and influence in the royal court would continue for a very long time. This was also the reason why clans like the Zhuang clan and Wei clan chose to send their offspring to the Kunwu training camp instead of Shenwei and Longwei. Wang Chong was a member of the Holy Emperor's faction, and he was a true upstart in the political world. What was even more difficult was that he was only 15, and the influence around him hadn't been fully formed yet. If they were to step in at this moment and establish a relationship with him, it would be immensely beneficial to the future of their clan. More than half of the aristocratic families that had come here had the same idea. The words of the duo were actually a taboo, indicating that their clans hoped to get closer to the Wang clan. "You're being too polite." Wang Chong chuckled, not minding their words at all. "Since we've entered the Kunwu training camp under instructor Zhao's name, we'll be classmates from now on. It's only right for us to interact more." The duo was delighted. Without a doubt, Wang Chong's words meant that he had accepted them. "Wang Gongzi, this is a token of our appreciation. We hope that Gongzi will accept it." The duo took out a crimson silk box from their sleeves, bowed deeply, and passed it to Wang Chong. At this moment, they weren't just representing themselves anymore. They were representing their respective clans. Wang Chong was silent for a moment, but he didn't reject them. He took the box from them. "Gongzi, we won't disturb you anymore. If Gongzi has any needs, feel free to instruct us." The duo bade farewell and left. Gongzi, the prestigious clans prioritized their own interests. Zhuang Zhengping and Qi Weisi are only third-generation disciples, so you can't trust them too much. Gazing in the direction where the duo left, Zhao Jingdian suddenly spoke. "I know." Wang Chong replied calmly. It was doubtful whether the promises of the prestigious clans could be trusted. Not to mention, the two clans had sent out Zhuang Zhengping and Qi Weisi, who didn't carry much weight in the clan. However, Wang Chong had his own considerations as well. The cavalry of the Zhuang clan and the infantry of the Qi clan were valiant soldiers. In the future war, a just cause would gain plenty of support while an unjust one would find little. Only by gathering the strength of the prestigious clans and nobles, as well as all the forces that could be united, would they be able to change the fate of the Central Plains. Chapter 200. Only after Zhuang Zhengping and Qi Weisi left did Wang Chong open the brocade box they had given him. At first glance, Wang Chong was nonchalant, but when he saw what was inside, his face immediately warped. What a huge gift from the Zhuang clan and Qi clan! Wang Chong took the items inside and looked through them, his heart filled with emotion. Initially, Wang Chong thought that the gifts from Zhuang Zhengping and Qi Weisi would at most be pills. There were indeed pills, but other than pills, there was a letter in each of the brocade boxes. The weight of this letter was much heavier than the weight of the pill. It was a letter from the Zhuang clan and Qi clan supporting Wang Chong's father, Wang Yan, in his conferment. The disciples of the Zhuang clan and Qi clan were scattered throughout the royal court, and the weight of the two letters sent out in the name of the Zhuang clan and Qi clan couldn't be underestimated. This wasn't as simple as Zhuang Zhengping and Qi Weisi expressing goodwill to Wang Chong. Rather, the Zhuang clan and Qi clan were expressing goodwill to Wang Chong and the Wang clan through their disciples. This gift isn't light at all. Zhao Jingdian said hesitantly after reading the letter that Wang Chong passed over. It must have been hard on them. I'll accept this gift then. Wang Chong chuckled as he stowed the two boxes away. Then, together with Zhao Jingdian, they walked toward the living quarters. The living quarters and training quarters of the Kunwu training camp were separated. The training quarters were gathered at the top of a mountain, where a massive flagpole was erected. All of the archers, cavalrymen, and infantrymen were trained there. In the surroundings of the training area, the same tall and straight mountain range stood erect, like a group of stars surrounding Kunwu's main mountain in the middle. These 4 mountains were divided into 4 camps: Azure Dragon, White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, and Black Tortoise. Banners fluttered in the wind on the 4 peaks, and palaces could be seen everywhere. There were also giant sculptures of the Azure Dragon, White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, and Black Tortoise. I'm not going, I'm determined not to go. Whoever is willing to stay with that bastard can go by themselves. Before Wang Chong could go over, he heard an angry shout from afar. Wang Chong walked over and saw a young man at the entrance of a great hall at the top of the mountain. His face was flushed red, and he was filled with anger. Around him, there were 2 figures talking to him, seemingly trying to calm his anger. Wang Chong didn't know the 2 young men who were shouting loudly, but Wang Chong knew the 2 figures who were trying to persuade them. It's Zhuang Zhenping and Qi Weisi. Zhao Jingdian was astonished. Let's go and take a look. Wang Chong frowned and walked over with Zhao Jingdian. Wang Gongzi. Zhuang Zhenping and Qi Weisi soon discovered Wang Chong. Both of them were stunned for a moment before they hurriedly turned around and bowed. What's wrong? What happened? Wang Chong asked in surprise. The 2 of them looked at each other hesitantly. In the end, it was Zhuang Zhenping who spoke up. Gongzi, to tell you the truth. There aren't many rooms left in the White Tiger barracks. There are only 2 rooms left in this district, and we wish for him to stay with Su Hanshan. This way, Gongzi can stay with this friend of yours. However, this friend refuses to agree to it no matter what. Bastard, why don't the 2 of you go over? What's so great about that Su Hanshan? What's the point of pretending to be aloof? I don't want to stay with him. Whoever wants to stay with him can go by themselves. I won't be accompanying you. That person was extremely agitated. Without any hesitation, he flung his sleeves, turned around, and walked into the room behind him. At the last moment, Wang Chong could clearly see a purple shoe print on the left side of his face, even the lines on the soles of his shoes visible. No one would leave a footprint on their own face. With a quick thought, Wang Chong roughly understood what was going on. This person, seems like he suffered a loss over there. Wang Chong said calmly. That person's temper is indeed a little bad. Gongzi, don't worry, I'll talk to him. Qi Weisi said awkwardly. Not only did he fail to accomplish his task, he was even slapped by that person in front of him. There's no need for that. Wang Chong shook his head and turned around. Jingdian, you should stay with him. I'll go over there. Gongzi, let me go. Zhao Jingdian said worriedly. He had personally witnessed Su Hanshan's examination, and he knew that the other party was skilled in martial arts. Furthermore, judging from that person's personality, he wasn't easy to get along with. Zhao Jingdian was worried that Wang Chong would suffer a loss. There's no need for that. Wang Chong didn't mind Zhao Jingdian's worries. Su Hanshan had a cold and aloof personality, and he wasn't easy to get along with. However, that person had a fiery temper, and it seemed like he wasn't someone who could tolerate easily either. Most likely, it was that person who had said something to provoke Su Hanshan into making a move on him. That person had given him a kick to the face, resulting in such humiliation. Don't worry, I know what to do. You don't have to worry. Zhuang Zhenping and Qi Weisi were surprised as well. They had tried their best to get Wang Chong to stay with Zhao Jingdian, but they didn't expect Wang Chong to reject their goodwill. For a moment, the 2 of them were at a loss for words. Wang Chong didn't say anything. He bade farewell to the 2 of them and walked away. Wang Chong had his own considerations regarding Su Hanshan. There was a huge problem with the personality of this future great general of the empire, and Wang Chong was still thinking about how he could help him change. However, it was even better now that the two of them were living together. Wang Chong didn't need to think too much about what he should do. The room was silent. When Wang Chong walked in, he didn't hear the slightest sound. But with a glance, he saw a slender figure sitting cross-legged in a room not too far away. His expression was cold, and he was motionless on the floor. That person exuded a frigid aura, reminiscent of a 10,000-year-old glacier. It exuded a distant feeling. Under the influence of his aura, the entire room seemed to be cold. Su Han's Han. A thought flashed across Wang Chong's mind. With just a glance, Wang Chong immediately understood why that person was unwilling to stay with Su Han's Han. Wherever Su Han's Han was, the air would be filled with an invisible pressure. Unless one was on the same level as him, one would feel uncomfortable just standing there. Furthermore, the frigid atmosphere was hard to get used to. It's no wonder why Su Han's Han couldn't get along with anyone in the army. Wang Chong glanced at it, a pensive look in his mind. Wang. The moment Wang Chong stepped into the room, the frozen Su Han's Han seemed to sense something and abruptly opened his eyes. In an instant, the frigid aura seemed to cool down significantly. So. Suddenly, without any warning, Su Han's Han flicked his wrist, and a few pieces of paper flew out from his sleeves at the speed of lightning. The 3 pieces of paper were as tough as steel and as straight as a saber. As they flew through the air, the sound of sharp swords echoed in the air. Wang Chong frowned, but his reaction wasn't slow either. Stretching out his hand, his 5 fingers accurately caught the 3 pieces of paper. Taking a closer look, each piece of paper had a single sentence written on it: "The center of the room is the boundary. Don't cross it. Don't disturb me. I don't like noise." The words were firm, as though they were carved by a saber. Even between the lines, one could feel the coldness of the words, giving off an inhumane feeling. This is indeed Su Hanshan's style. Wang Chong inwardly shook his head. The words on the paper were dry, and it didn't look like they were written today. It was clear that Su Han's Han had prepared these notes beforehand. Even before ascending the mountain, he had already prepared these notes. Clearly, Su Han's Han wasn't prepared for this. No matter who it was, they would probably receive these 3 notes. Who? On the other side, upon seeing that Wang Chong had received the notes, Su Hanshan's robe fluttered, and he abruptly stood up. Without even glancing at Wang Chong, he opened the door and walked out of the room. Throughout the entire process, he treated his words like gold, not even speaking a single word to Wang Chong. Cold and aloof, there was no doubt about it. It's easier to change mountains and rivers than a person's character. It seems like it won't be a matter of a day or 2 to change his character. Wang Chong shook his head, paying it no heed. Taking out a few pieces of paper from the room, he began writing. Sun Jiming and Deng Mingxin were on bad terms, and Deng Mingxin would surely try his best to suppress and deal with Sun Jiming. This matter had to be dealt with as soon as possible to prevent any future troubles. Wang Chong pondered for a moment before writing 2 letters. One of them was for Big Uncle Wang Zhen, and the other was for the King of Song, Li Qingqi. Both letters were sent out. After everything was done, Wang Chong heaved a long sigh of relief. Next up, I should find a way to raise my cultivation. Wang Chong thought. The 3 great training camps were personally appointed by the Holy Emperor, and they had attracted many experts. Not just someone of his seniority, even those of Marchioness Yi's standing had been drawn in. The incident in the day had made Wang Chong realize that his cultivation was still insufficient to suppress all of them. Putting everything aside, Su Han's Han was a clear example. Not to mention, there were many other examples in the 3 great training camps that he was unaware of. Zhou Zhang's existence also served as a reminder to Wang Chong. That person was in existence on the same level as his second brother, Wang Bei. It would be fine if his second brother was around, but he was currently in the Imperial Army's Imperial prison. He could only depend on himself now. Wang Chong pondered for a moment before deciding on a martial art for himself. I'll cultivate the hexad arms skill. Wang Chong suddenly thought of an ultimate art. There were many cultivation techniques in the Kunwu training camp, and he could learn them for free. However, to Wang Chong, he had an even better choice. The hexad arms skill was an ultimate art that couldn't be learned in the Kunwu training camp. It was a classic agility-type ultimate art, and it was the first agility-type cultivation technique that Wang Chong had chosen for himself. It wasn't easy to cultivate it, and it couldn't raise a cultivator's strength. However, to Wang Chong, this ultimate art was a perfect match for the single-character consecutive slash. If he were to combine the hexad arms skill with the single-character consecutive slash, the might of the single-character consecutive slash would increase exponentially. If Wang Chong could only execute a single slash in the same amount of time, he would be able to execute 6 consecutive slashes at the same time, increasing the might of his attack by several folds. More importantly, the hexad arms skill was just an entry-level ultimate art. It could be upgraded to the 12 arms skill, 24 arms skill, and finally, the highest grade of the 36 arms skill. Under the same circumstances, this ultimate art could raise Wang Chong's strength to an unimaginable level. Recalling the hexad arms skill, Wang Chong sat down cross-legged and calmed himself down. Chapter 201. Time passed, and unknowingly, the sky gradually darkened. Bastard! Bastard, how dare you steal my man! In a room on Black Tortoise Peak, Deng Mingxin's face was flushed red, and his expression contorted. With a ferocious punch, he shattered the table in the room. Deng Mingxin had finally cleared the competition and entered the Kunwu training camp. However, without Sun Jiming's help, Deng Mingxin had no choice but to replace him with a loyal lackey. That lackey was eliminated from the mountain on the spot. Deng Mingxin had 2 arms, and now that he only had 1 left, how could he not be filled with hatred? Gongzi, that Wang Chong interfered and poached Sun Jiming over. Should we report this to Zheng Gongzi? Should we get Zheng Gongzi to stand up for us and deal with Wang Chong? The only remaining lackey said from the side. He was also in a bad mood. There's no need for that. Deng Mingxin was tempted, but he quickly shook his head. We've only just gotten in touch with Zheng Gongzi not too long ago, and Sun Jiming is a subordinate of our clan. If we can't even deal with a mere subordinate, wouldn't Zheng Gongzi look down on us? The person whom Deng Mingxin had sought refuge with was called Zheng Xian. He was also a subordinate of King Qi, but his clan was much more powerful than Deng Mingxin's. It was through him that Deng Mingxin managed to get in touch with King Qi. Otherwise, how could he possibly have the capability to do so? Zheng Xian was a meticulous person, skilled in martial arts, and someone who had a reputation with King Qi. He was no ordinary figure. Deng Mingxin didn't want Zheng Xian to look down on him. But what else can we do? Are we supposed to swallow this humiliation just like that? With so many people watching, Wang Chong stole our people in front of everyone. Young master can endure this sort of humiliation, but I can't. The lackey said, trying his best to encourage him. Humph, of course not. Deng Mingxin harumphed coldly. His gaze gradually turned cold. I might not be able to deal with Wang Chong and the Wang clan, but do you think I can't deal with a mere Sun Jiming? Big fish eat small fish, and small fish eat shrimps. Sun Jiming is a shrimps. If he dares to betray me, then don't blame me. I want him and the entire Sun family to pay the price. Deng Mingxin's eyes were filled with hatred as he quickly wrote a letter and followed a night kite back to the capital. Sun Jiming, since you dare to betray us, your father can forget about working under my father. Follow your father back to the countryside to farm. In the dark of the night, Deng Mingxin looked in the direction that Yi Kite had flown in, and a sharp glint flashed in his eyes. At the same time, unbeknownst to Wang Chong and the others, their instructor, Zhao Qianqiu, was currently walking toward the main hall of the Kunwu training camp. This main hall was located in the middle, but it was not open to others. Even the imperial army on the mountain couldn't enter this place as they pleased. Chiaki, you're here. The main hall was dark. There were no candles or oil lamps, but a dignified voice came from inside. At the top of the hall, there was a majestic figure clad in armor, sitting upright like a god. On his body, waves of aura were like the mountains and the seas, giving people a deep sense of reverence. Chiaki pays respect to Lord. Upon entering the hall, Zhao Qianqiu bowed deeply to the figure at the top of the hall. It was clear that he was extremely respectful. In truth, Zhao Qianqiu knew that the person seated in the main hall of Kunwu training camp was the one in charge, as well as his direct superior. How is it? Did you manage to find anything? Seated at the top, the figure asked impassively. Hee, of course I did. I've managed to recruit quite a few good seedlings this time. Hearing those words, Zhao Qianqiu chuckled as he recounted the 5 recruits he had recruited during the day. I'm only giving this training camp a try because of the Sage Emperor's orders. I didn't think that I would manage to recruit quite a few good seedlings. That Su Hanshan might be young, but his fighting style is sharp and his ability to break through my defense is truly astonishing. My 10-directional lightning might is impregnable, and very few people are able to break through it. But that young man actually managed to break through my defense head-on. His fighting style is so sharp that even I found it hard to bear. On top of that, he even managed to slash me with his finger. His cultivation isn't too high yet, but he was already able to force me into such a state. If he were to mature, his future would be limitless. Zhao Qianqiu exclaimed in awe. Clearly, Su Hanshan's performance had left a deep impression on him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have said such words. To be able to break through your 10-directional lightning finger and injure you. This kind of ability is truly astounding. Does that mean that he is the leader of the students you recruited this time around? You should groom him then. The authoritative figure at the top of the hall said. Unexpectedly, upon hearing those words, Zhao Qianqiu suddenly fell silent. What's wrong? Is there a problem? The majestic figure in the main hall was slightly surprised. Zhao Qianqiu had always been a decisive person. It was rare for him to be so hesitant, and it wasn't his style at all. That's hard to say. I feel that there's a huge problem with Su Hanshan's personality. Standing beside him, I can feel that this child is cold and distant, keeping others at arm's length. Even standing there, he keeps a distance from others. This isn't a good thing. What we need to select are talented commanders on the battlefield, not ordinary fierce generals, or lone men. As a commander, we have to manage the relationship between our comrades and subordinates well. Only when all of the troops are united will we be able to conduct a large-scale campaign. However, Su Hanshan's personality is too cold and difficult to get along with. I fear that it'll be difficult for him to become a true commander on the battlefield. Zhao Qianqiu hesitated. If Wang Chong were here, he would surely be astonished. Zhao Qianqiu had only met Su Hanshan once, and they had only exchanged a few words. Even so, it was still a polite exchange. Yet, he was able to accurately predict Su Hanshan's future path. Arrogant and difficult to get along with. That's indeed a problem. The authoritative figure fell into a rare moment of silence. However, these children are still young, and they can still change in the future. Is this the reason why you are hesitating? That's not it. Zhao Qianqiu shook his head. Oh. This time, the authoritative figure was truly surprised. Lord, do you still remember the offspring of the Wang clan, Wang Chong, who caused a huge uproar in the regional commander's incident and was even imprisoned by the Holy Emperor? Zhao Qianqiu asked. I do. To be able to be so devoted to his country, as expected of a clan of generals and ministers, he didn't bring shame to Duke Zhou's name. Clearly, the authoritative figure had a good impression of Wang Chong as well. Wang Chong is currently under my name. Zhao Qianqiu replied straightforwardly. After which, he recounted the battle with Wang Chong to the authoritative figure. The regional commander's incident had caused a huge uproar, and Wang Chong had thought that he was concealing the truth. Little did he know that Zhao Qianqiu had already recognized him the moment he saw him. It was just that Zhao Qianqiu didn't expose him. To be able to be so devoted to his country and possess such extraordinary cultivation, it's truly surprising. Even though he still can't match up to Su Han's Han, he's still not too bad. The majestic figure in the main hall said. Clearly, he had a very high opinion of Wang Chong. Lord, my feelings are different from yours. Zhao Qianqiu frowned. He didn't bring up this matter to the authoritative figure to tell him that he had accepted Wang Chong as his student. That child might have said that it was his intuition, but I don't think so. That's not the case for me. No one's intuition can reach such a level. Intuition can allow you to sense potential danger. Intuition can allow you to sense the flaws in your opponent's moves. Intuition can also allow you to keenly capture impossible opportunities. However, intuition can never allow you to guide your opponent's primal chi and cause it to become chaotic in your body. Lord, you should be aware of my capabilities as well. I have cultivated the 10 directional lightning fingers for a long time, but this is the first time my origin chi has clashed with one another, resulting in my movements being delayed by half a beat. It's fortunate that this is only a duel. If I were to be delayed by half a beat on the battlefield, I'm sure you know what the outcome would be. Zhao Qianqiu said grimly. Wang Chong was using his intuition to fool him, but little did he know that even though Zhao Qianqiu seemed to accept this reason on the surface, the latter had already seen through it. How could Zhao Qianqiu, who had received the orders of the Holy Emperor and the royal court to select talented commanders from the Kunwu training camp, be fooled that easily? Wang Chong had underestimated him too much. The hall was silent. That imposing figure stood motionless like a statue, and for the first time, a contemplative look appeared on his face. The 10 directional lightning fingers was a top-notch offensive and lethal secret art in the military. Even though Zhao Qianqiu had suppressed his cultivation and didn't exert his full strength, that didn't mean much. The problem that Zhao Qianqiu raised had nothing to do with his strength or cultivation. If Wang Chong could use that method to guide the origin chi in Zhao Qianqiu's body to clash with one another and cause his movements to slow down, then, he would surely be able to use the same method to guide the origin chi in Zhao Qianqiu's body to clash with one another and cause his movements to slow down. This was something that had nothing to do with one's cultivation. This was the Kunwu training camp, a battle between the instructor and the student. Even if you were to slow down for a moment or suffer a stab from Wang Chong's sword, it wouldn't matter. But if it was on the battlefield, this kind of negligence, a step delay, would only lead to death. Are you certain? Is it a coincidence? A long moment later, the authoritative voice asked. Definitely not. Zhao Qianqiu replied grimly. But this is inexplicable. Even a veteran who is 2 cultivation realms above you wouldn't be able to guide the 10 directional lightning fingers to clash with one another. As a mere 15-year-old child, how could he possibly do it? This isn't as simple as writing a memorial to the emperor. There's no such thing as a martial artist. Even the other party was astonished. The matter that Zhao Qianqiu spoke of was no small matter. Logically speaking, it was impossible for such a thing to happen. In fact, it was even more shocking than the matter regarding Su Han's Han. Lord, do you know why I hesitated now? Even though Su Hanshan's fighting style is sharp, he would still be at a disadvantage if he were to meet a formidable opponent. As for that Wang Chong, if he could reach even half of Wang Chong's capability in the art of war, I'm afraid that even I wouldn't be able to teach him anything. This kind of person will be the best commander for us in the future. There's no one else like him. Chapter 202. The entire hall was silent. Clearly, that person was deep in thought as well. Then, what do you mean? That person turned to look at Zhao Qianxiu with a questioning gaze. As an instructor, Zhao Qianxiu had more say in this matter. I've never thought about it either. Everything is still just my conjecture. Besides, this is only the beginning. This is only the first day of the Kunwu training camp. We'll know how things turn out in the future. Zhao Qianxiu replied. He seemed to be very open-minded in this aspect. That's fine too. Today is the first day of the Kunwu training camp. After gathering the information from you, I'll be returning to the royal palace to report to His Majesty. His Majesty has been keeping an eye on this matter. The person in the hall chuckled. I'll be sending you off then. It just so happens that I have something to add to the food for those fellows tonight. The first day of the Kunwu training camp isn't a place for them to indulge in debauchery. As my student, you should have this resolve. Zhao Qianxiu chuckled. Don't go overboard. That person was also amused by Zhao Qianxiu's words. Clearly, he knew the latter's style. Understood. Zhao Qianxiu clasped his fist before leaving the hall. After Zhao Qianxiu left, the figure also left the Kunwu training camp. Time slowly passed, and the sky outside was already completely dark. Wang Chong was seated on the floor, not moving at all. Origin energy gushed through his body like a tidal wave, flowing into the meridians and acupoints of Wang Chong's arms, shoulders, waist, and groin. Most agility-type cultivation techniques involve the acupoints of the arms, waist, and groin. Furthermore, most of them were brand new meridians and acupoints, and most of them didn't overlap with strength-type cultivation techniques. On the other hand, high-tier secret arts like the hexad arms technique required far more acupoints than ordinary agility-type cultivation techniques. It was as though he had to cultivate it all over again, which was time-consuming and strenuous. On top of that, if he were to choose an agility-type secret art, the number of acupoints that he would have to clear would be even greater. At that time, he would need to open up hundreds of acupoints. Cultivating 3 types of secret arts at the same time would involve so many acupoints. If one were to bite off more than one could chew, one would probably remain stagnant for the rest of one's life. This was also the reason why Zhao Qianxiu, as well as the entire martial arts world, advised against cultivating all 3 types of secret arts simultaneously before reaching true martial realm. However, Wang Chong was different. Wang Chong had not taken the 2 pills that the Holy Emperor had bestowed upon him in prison. The Zhuang family and Qi family had spent a lot of money to give him 2 more pills, making it 4 pills in total. Moreover, he could also get a few special pills from Liuji Zhang every month, which were refined by the alchemist in the imperial palace and the prince's mansion. It was because of this confidence that Wang Chong dared to choose 2 or even 3 types of unique skills at the same time. The hexad arms technique was difficult to cultivate, but it was extremely powerful. Paired with the single character consecutive slash, it could amplify one's prowess exponentially. The reason why Wang Chong kept the pills from the Holy Emperor was so that he could cultivate the hexad arms technique when he was released from prison. I should first cultivate the hexad arms technique to minor accomplishment before consuming the pills. Using the medicinal energy from the pills, I should be able to break through the meridians and acupoints in my arms. This way, I should be able to cultivate the hexad arms technique in the shortest time possible. Wang Chong thought. In the origin energy realm, the hexad arms technique was definitely one of the best agility-type secret arts. In fact, even in the true martial realm, it was an extremely powerful secret art. Under the shroud of night, the entire White Tiger Mountain was silent. Wang Chong was immersed in the cultivation of the hexad arms technique, oblivious to the passing of time in the outside world. Ka! After an unknown period of time, Wang Chong suddenly heard a crisp sound, as though someone was stepping on a tree branch. It was only for a moment before it stopped. Wang Chang's heart skipped a beat, and he abruptly opened his eyes. It was extremely suspicious to hear such a crisp sound in the dead of the night. Furthermore, the sound was very close to his room. Wang Chong listened carefully, but it was completely silent outside the room. That sound only sounded for a moment before vanishing. Strange, did I hear wrongly? Wang Chong was surprised. The room was pitch black, and there was no light. Wang Chong listened carefully. Other than himself, Wang Chong also heard the sound of a heartbeat. It was faint and long. This was Su Hanshan's voice. It was unknown when he returned from outside, but he didn't light up the room either. Wang Chong listened for a moment, and he immediately realized that Su Hanshan seemed to have noticed something as well, and he was listening carefully just like him. Bang! All of a sudden, a loud sound echoed, as though something heavy had crashed into the room. The sound was very close, as though it came from the room next door. Then, he heard a loud cry of panic, and it was extremely striking in the darkness. Jingdian! Wang Chang's body jolted, and his face immediately warped. That voice wasn't Zhao Jingdian's, but the examinee who had shouted earlier that he wouldn't stay with Su Hanshan. Since Zhao Jingdian was staying with him, there was no doubt that something had happened on his side. Wang! Wang Chong immediately leaped up from the ground and dashed toward the door. Roar! In the blink of an eye, just as Wang Chong was about to reach the entrance, the roar of a tiger sounded. In the darkness of the night, a black silhouette flashed, and a massive figure charged in, bringing with it the stench of the mountain wind. A tiger? Wang Chong was astonished. Under the dim light of the night, Wang Chong could vaguely make out a 2-meter-long adult tiger. Its head was thicker than 4 human heads, and its body was even larger than a bear. Boom! In the blink of an eye, Wang Chong's right fist collided heavily with the tiger's claw. Peng! A powerful force came from the tiger's claw, and Wang Chong felt a sharp pain in his wrist before he was sent flying. Pushing against the ground, Wang Chong made use of the force to leap away, pulling open the distance between them. At the same time, the tiger trembled, and its 4 paws landed on the ground. A red glow glowed in its eyes. Under the dim light, Wang Chong could clearly see that the tiger's stomach was shriveled up, and its 2 bellies were almost touching each other. This is a ravenous tiger. A thought flashed across Wang Chong's mind, and his face warped. Everyone knew that a ravenous tiger would be much more ferocious and aggressive than a normal tiger. Through the previous clash, Wang Chong could tell that the strength of the tiger before him was probably on par with him, if not stronger. Moreover, its bones were harder than his. Although martial artists also had tiger bones, they only imitated tigers and couldn't be compared to real tigers. Roar! Before the first wave subsided, another wave arose. Almost at the same time that the tiger landed on the ground, in the darkness, the mountain wind blew, and 2 more colorful giant tigers pounced from outside the door. One on the left and the other on the right, they appeared beside the tiger. Seeing the 2 tigers, Su Hanshan also stood up in another room in the darkness. The rooms in the Kunwu training camp were connected, and there was nothing separating them. While Wang Chong was being targeted, Su Hanshan was also being targeted by the other 2 tigers. 1 tiger might be insignificant, but 3 tigers were a different story. Roar! The forest shook, and the roar of a tiger echoed from the neighboring hall. It was Zhao Jingdian and the others. At the same time, as though infected by the roar, the 3 tigers charged toward Wang Chong while the other 2 pounced towards Su Hanshan. In the darkness, a gust of wind blew, and with a flash of light, the mountain-sized tiger had already arrived before Wang Chong. Speed, strength, agility, and explosiveness. At this moment, all of them were on full display before Wang Chong. Back at the Wang family residence, Wang Chong had tried out the explosiveness of a tiger bone realm expert, allowing him to pounce over a distance of several dozen zhang. However, compared to a true tiger, he paled in comparison. One was imitating a tiger while the other was a true tiger. The difference between the two was clear. Wang. Without any time to think, Wang Chong executed the celestial steps and dodged to the side. Boom! Behind him, the table in Wang Chong's room shattered into pieces. The tiger's claw landed on the floor, creating a massive crater. After missing its attack, the hungry tiger immediately counterattacked and chased after Wang Chong. But at this moment, Wang Chong had already reached the bedside and grabbed the sword that he had placed on the bed when he was cultivating. Chong! With a resounding roar, Wang Chong drew his sword, and in that instant, his aura abruptly changed. Executing the single-character consecutive slash, he abruptly escaped from the claws of the massive tiger, twisted in midair, and rebounded back to where Wang Chong and his sword had come from. Single-character consecutive slash. Boom! The sword flashed, and a scream of agony echoed in the room. Wang Chong's sword had pierced through the body of the hungry tiger. However, the expected scene of the tiger being cut in half did not happen. When the sword entered the tiger's body, it was as if it had hit a metal plate. It was stuck and could not continue. Tiger bone. A thought flashed in Wang Chong's mind. The tiger's bones were harder and denser than human martial artists. Swords and sabers could pierce through its flesh, but it was difficult to cut its bones in half. Wang Chong's sword did not kill it. Instead, it triggered the tiger's ferocious nature. One of the tiger's claws flickered with a cold light and smashed towards Wang Chong like a small mountain. The strength contained in the tiger's claws could probably bend and break steel. Wang Chong did not dare to resist. He quickly retreated and touched a sword on the wall. The scabbard of the sword looked very ordinary. It was only worth a few dozen copper coins and was very inconspicuous. Many people would not pay attention to it even if they saw it. Even if it was given to him, he might not want it. But to Wang Chong, this sword was the most powerful treasure sword that he had brought with him. Clang! Wherever the cold light passed, blood splattered. A huge furry tiger head rolled on the floor. The tough and powerful tiger bone could not block Wang Chong's sword at all. Chapter 203. A Wool. Just as Wang Chong finished off the first tiger, Su Hanshan also finished off another tiger. Unlike Wang Chong, Su Hanshan didn't have a sword in his hand. It looked like he had used the strength of his palm to kill the mountain-sized tiger. Bang! Almost at the same time that Wang Chong looked over, Su Hanshan tossed the second tiger, which weighed at least 700 or 800 kilograms, away from his head. With a loud boom, it crashed heavily onto the ground. This fellow is so strong. Wang Chong's heart skipped a beat when he saw this scene. Wang Chong had fought with these tigers before and his palms hurt from the impact. Yet, Su Hanshan was able to send these 700 or 800 kilograms flying. It was clear that Su Hanshan was stronger than him. Furthermore, from the way he fought, his yuan qi was extremely destructive. This kind of energy didn't affect the outside but penetrated the body and destroyed the internal organs. Therefore, Su Hanshan could kill these tigers with his bare hands and destroy their internal organs without using a sword or saber. After the second adult tiger got up, it staggered a little. It was obvious that its stamina wasn't as good as before. As expected of a tiger on the battlefield in the future. When Wang Chong saw this scene, he suddenly understood why Su Hanshan's ability to break through the enemy's defenses and tear apart the enemy's formation was so powerful in the future. However, there was no time to think too much. Wang Chong didn't have the time to care about Su Hanshan. Roar! A strong gust of wind blew in from outside the door, scattering the broken pieces of the tables and chairs on the ground. This time, the mountain wind and the stench of blood in the air were several times stronger than before. A series of deafening tiger roars sounded. This time, there were actually 5 or 6 tigers fighting to be the first to pounce over. What's going on? Why are there so many tigers on the mountain? Wang Chong was shocked. Kunwu, Shenwei, and Longwei training camps were built in the midst of a mountain range, and the forests were filled with ferocious beasts and venomous snakes. To the north of the capital was the royal garden, the holy emperor's hunting ground. Could it be that the tigers there had come here? Wang Chong was very surprised, but he also felt that something was wrong. However, he didn't have much time to think. The 5 huge tigers, each the size of a small mountain, pounced at him again. In that instant, Wang Chong had a feeling that he was facing 5 opponents of the same level or even more powerful. Bang! This time, with the Wuzi steel sword in hand, Wang Chong did not dodge. With the single-character consecutive slash, his body and sword became one as he shot out explosively, pouncing on the group of tigers. The combination of single-character consecutive slash and 6-arm skill increased the speed of Wang Chong's Wuzi steel sword by a whole notch. The afterimages created by the single-character consecutive slash were indistinguishable. Roar! A cold gleam flashed, and blood splattered. 2 of the massive tigers were killed by Wang Chong's consecutive slashes. The other 3 tigers pounced at Zhang Xian from all directions. Their massive claws carried incredible strength, and if they were to land a strike on Zhang Xian's body, even bones would be shattered. However, Wang Chong managed to dodge all 3 of the tiger claws. The movement technique of the single-character consecutive slash was unpredictable, and it was impossible to predict whether he was advancing or retreating. The 3 tigers were all dodged by Wang Chong by a hair's breadth. Roar! After dodging all 3 of their attacks, the ferocious nature of the 3 tigers flared up. However, instead of charging toward Wang Chong, they charged towards Su Hanshan, who was in the other half of the room. I don't like others helping me in my battles, Su Hanshan said coldly. It was as if he knew what Wang Chong was going to do, so he stopped him in advance. The atmosphere between the 2 froze. Initially, Wang Chong wanted to help him, but upon hearing the other party's cold tone, he found it hard to do so. Bang bang! Without giving Wang Chong a chance to rest, 2 more ferocious tigers flew in. That's right, they were flying. This time, Wang Chong could clearly see that these 2 tigers didn't pounce on him. Instead, it was as if they were sent flying by a powerful force. Clang clang! Before Wang Chong could react, 1, 2, 3. A total of 3 ferocious tigers flew into the room. Unlike the previous tigers, when these 2 tigers landed on the ground, a loud clanging sound could be heard. Borrowing the light of the night, at this moment, Wang Chong could clearly see that these 3 tigers were covered in thick armor. How could a wild tiger have heavy armor that could only be forged by humans? No matter how muddle-headed Wang Chong was, he could tell that these hungry tigers appearing in the middle of the night wasn't a natural phenomenon. Someone had intentionally thrown them into their room. Instructor Zhao. Wang Chong's gritted teeth sounded exceptionally loud in the night. There was only one person who would do such a thing. Furthermore, in order to counter him, he had even covered the other party in heavy armor. If one were to say that this wasn't Zhao Qianxiu's doing, Wang Chong would never believe it. Ha ha ha, as expected, as soon as Wang Chong said those words, a familiar laughter sounded from outside the door. Lad, you're smart. However, it's useless even if you've noticed it. I've told you before that being my student is different from the others. As my students, you must maintain a high level of vigilance at all times so that you can deal with any danger that might appear, regardless of whether it's from your enemies or your own people. This is the first lesson I've taught you. Amidst the howling wind, Zhao Qianxiu's laughter sounded extremely arrogant. Even though he had been discovered, Zhao Qianxiu didn't feel the slightest bit ashamed or embarrassed. As for saving them, that was even more impossible. The training camp is your battlefield. You should experience the feeling of danger and the possibility of dying at any moment. Right, I forgot to tell you that there's a quota for death in the training camp. This is the decree of His Majesty, the Holy Emperor. These words weren't just directed at Wang Chong but the others as well. Without a doubt, Wang Chong and the others weren't the only ones who were ambushed. Roar! As soon as Zhao Qianqiu said those words, the three armored behemoths raised their heads, and together with the other three tigers, they stared at Wang Chong and Su Hanshan with a vicious glint in their eyes. So, 6 giant tigers flew out, and in the instant that they charged out, Wang Chong could clearly see that they were actually using the stellar steps. 3 massive tigers who knew martial arts. And they were even wearing heavy armor. In that instant, Wang Chong felt a chill run down his spine. Zhao Qianqiu's means were truly terrifying. To think that he would summon such ferocious tigers just to deal with him and Su Hanshan. There was no way that Wang Chong would believe that these ferocious tigers hadn't been enlightened by a martial arts expert. Furthermore, even though Zhao Qianqiu had admitted that he was the culprit, he didn't intend to stand by the side to prevent any casualties. These ferocious tigers possessed sharp teeth and claws. If one were to be struck, regardless of whether one was bitten or slapped, one would definitely be severely injured. Zhao Qianqiu wasn't joking when he said that there was a quota for death. Boom! Without any time to think, Wang Chong raised his sword and executed the single character consecutive slash once more. However, this time, Wang Chong didn't take the initiative to charge at the tigers. Instead, he retreated as fast as a bolt of lightning. With the addition of the 3 tigers that Su Hanshan was currently fighting, there were now a total of 9 tigers in this room. Zhao Qianqiu's means were truly frightening. At this moment, no matter how confident Wang Chong was in his strength, he didn't dare to be careless and face them alone. Roar! As soon as Wang Chong retreated, 2 of the 6 new tigers immediately pounced towards Su Hanshan. The remaining 3 steel-armored tigers, along with another new tiger, pounced toward Wang Chong. Roar! On the White Tiger Mountain, the roars of tigers resounded. At the same time, Wang Chong, Su Hanshan, Zhao Jingdian, Zhuang Zhengping, and Qi Weisi were locked in a bitter battle in their respective rooms. Hee, whether you can survive or not will depend on yourselves now. If you really get eaten by the tigers, don't blame me for being merciless. At this moment, on the pitch-black White Tiger Mountain, Zhao Qianqiu was dressed in military attire, and he was standing beneath a massive Chinese scholar tree. Beneath the Chinese scholar tree was a massive boulder. Zhao Qianqiu was standing on top of the boulder, and beneath his feet was a thick layer of fallen leaves. In front of him, numerous metal cages were placed in a row. The metal cages were forged from Xian metal, making them exceptionally sturdy. However, at this moment, the metal doors of the dozen or so cages were already open. Zhao Qianqiu had already tossed all of the ferocious beasts into the hall in front. Hearing the panicked voices in the 3 rooms, as well as the sounds of breaking and fighting, Zhao Qianqiu narrowed his eyes with a look of enjoyment on his face. He had obtained these ferocious beasts from the royal palace, the Holy Emperor's royal garden, and the army. In order to teach his students, Zhao Qianqiu had spared no effort. In order to kill, you have to survive first. If you can't even survive, I won't be able to teach you the art of commanding anymore. So, no matter what, you have to find a way to survive. This isn't as simple as a test. Despite hearing the intense fighting and the roars of the tigers in the 3 halls, Zhao Qianqiu smiled faintly. What he wanted to teach wasn't some theoretical or competitive expert, but those who could survive in a desperate battle. Uzan, Eastern and Western Turkic Khaganate, Goguryeo, Abbasid Caliphate, Karak Spazinu, Mengshi Zhao. Only the true elites of the army could sense the dangers lurking around the empire. If they couldn't even survive under the claws of a pack of tigers, it would be impossible for them to survive in the harsh battlefield. Thus, Zhao Qianqiu wasn't worried that anyone would die. The success of a general leads to the death of 10,000. In the first place, the art of commanding was forged from death itself. Time slowly passed, and Zhao Qianqiu waited patiently outside. Ah! A shrill scream echoed from Zhao Jingdian's room. It wasn't Zhao Jingdian's, but the young man who was staying with him, the arrogant young man who refused to stay with Su Hanshan, was the first to fall prey to the tiger's claws. Following which, screams of agony sounded from Zhuang Zhengping and Qi Weixi's rooms as well. They weren't cries of agony from those on the verge of death. Clearly, one of them was injured as well. Following which, groans sounded from Wang Chong and Su Hanshan's rooms as well. Chapter 204. Zhao Jingdian's room was the first to end his battle. This tiger attack in the middle of the night was only to test them, not to kill them. Thus, Zhao Qianqiu chose to release the tigers based on their strength. Zhao Jingdian's room had the least number of tigers, so he was the first to end his battle. Gongzi. Zhao Jingdian's clothes were stained with blood, but it was hard to tell whether it was tiger blood or human blood. Stepping out of his room, Zhao Jingdian immediately rushed toward Wang Chang's room with a panicked expression. But just as Zhao Jingdian was rushing out of his room, roar! A cry of agony sounded, and from Zhuang Zhengping and Qi Weixi's room, a tiger the size of a small mountain was sent flying out. The ground trembled violently for a moment before the tiger stopped moving. Let's go and take a look. Zhuang Zhengping and Qi Weixi's voices echoed from the room. Following closely behind Zhao Jingdian, the duo dashed out of the room. Even though it was late at night, Zhao Qianqiu could clearly see the wretched state of the duo beneath the Chinese scholar tree. Their faces were pale, and their sleeves, arms, chest, and abdomen had been clawed deeply. In some places, even their bones could be vaguely seen. Even though the two of them weren't treated as well as Wang Chong and Su Hanshan, Zhao Qianqiu still paid special attention to them. Not bad, as expected of science. Their cultivation is indeed extraordinary. In the darkness, Zhao Qianqiu nodded. The injuries the duo sustained were much lighter than he had expected. Initially, Zhao Qianqiu thought that at least one of them would be severely injured. However, the duo only suffered superficial wounds, and the damage to their internal organs wasn't too severe either. This left Zhao Qianqiu rather satisfied. He had recruited 5 students this time around. Even though it was more than he had expected, each of them possessed extraordinary strength. Now, only the 2 of them are left. Zhao Qianqiu's gaze turned to Wang Chong and Su Hanshan's room. Zhao Qianqiu doted on these 2 students whom he valued the most. Thus, in the middle of the night, Zhao Qianqiu had added the most ingredients for them. Furthermore, in order to deal with Wang Chang's situation, he even got 3 tigers that had been taught by experts, knew some martial arts, and were clad in heavy armor. Good students always needed special care. To think that Wang Chong and Su Hanshan, the 2 most outstanding students of Zhao Qianqiu, would be living together. This had given Zhao Qianqiu a huge headache. Both of them were top-notch elites. If these 2 families joined hands, it would be a real headache for him. The effectiveness of many measures would be greatly reduced. However, Zhao Qianqiu soon realized that he was overthinking things. It was impossible for the 2 of them to work together. It wasn't that Wang Chong wasn't willing, but Su Hanshan's personality was that even if he were to die, he would rather die alone. He wasn't willing to lie with someone else. In this kind of situation, the 9-headed tiger could attack one person and another at the same time, which was much better than the one-on-one test. Now, let's see how much damage they can avoid. Zhao Qianqiu listened carefully for a moment and realized that the battle between Wang Chong and Su Hanshan was on the verge of subsiding. It's about time. Zhao Qianqiu immediately moved toward Wang Chong and Su Hanshan's room. Roar! A tiger's roar shook the world, and Wang Chong and Su Hanshan's room trembled for a moment before everything calmed down. In the darkness, a little light lit up, illuminating the outline of the window frame in the room. It also faintly reflected the silhouettes of several young people. Zhao Qianqiu hastened his footsteps and rushed over. The battle in the room had already ended. As soon as Zhao Qianqiu walked in, he immediately saw the devastation in the room. Tables, chairs, beds, screens, and doors were all shattered into pieces, and it was even to the extent that the walls had collapsed and were smashed into numerous holes. Numerous tiger claw marks that were like blades and swords covered the surroundings, and it was a horrifying sight. The room was stained with blood, and the floor was dyed red. More than a dozen massive tigers, each of them the size of a small mountain, were piled up in the room. Every single one of these tigers was equivalent to 4 to 5 adults. Piled up in the room, it was a frightening sight. The 3 heavily armored tigers that Zhao Qianqiu had specially prepared to deal with Wang Chong were among them. Their armor had been split open, and the gash was as smooth as a mirror. Even their bodies had been split open. How sharp! Zhao Qianqiu blinked his eyes in astonishment. He realized that he had underestimated the weapon in Wang Chong's hand. This Wuzi steel weapon was much sharper than he had expected. The heavy armor he had draped over the tigers was forged from Xian metal, making it incomparably resilient. On the battlefield, only the most elite soldiers would be able to equip them. But even so, it was still unable to withstand the Wuzi steel sword in Wang Chong's hand. Sweeping his gaze across the room, Zhao Qianqiu soon realized that even though Wang Chong and Su Hanshan were the ones whom he had taken care of, their injuries were the lightest. To be more precise, other than their pale faces and depleted origin energy, they weren't injured at all. This was completely different from what Zhao Qianqiu had expected. More than a dozen tigers in such a narrow space. Yet, they weren't injured at all. Zhao Qianqiu's eyebrows shot up in surprise. Wang Chong and Su Hanshan's performance was much better than he had expected. Against these 2 people, it seemed that pure strength and numbers would not play a decisive role. Instructor Zhao. Just as Zhao Qianqiu was surveying the room, a voice broke the silence. Wang Chong, who was in the midst of recuperating, was the first to notice Zhao Qianqiu. Following which, everyone's gazes turned toward Zhao Qianqiu with malicious intent. The entire room fell silent, and the atmosphere seemed to have frozen. Even Su Hanshan lifted his head to look at Zhao Qianqiu. Even though there was no change in the latter's expression, it was clear that he wasn't in a good mood. Releasing the tigers in the middle of the night was no longer as simple as a test. The tragic death of the examinee who was with Zhao Jingdian was more than enough to prove the problem. Zhao Qianqiu wasn't joking when he said that there was a death quota. If they couldn't survive this, they would have died in vain. They wouldn't have the chance to stand before Zhao Qianqiu anymore. Wang Chong, Su Hanshan, Zhuang Zhenping, Qi Weisi, and Zhao Jingdian glared at Zhao Qianqiu furiously, but none of them said a word. An invisible pressure began to build up in the air. Why? Are you thinking of rebelling? Zhao Qianqiu could sense the rage in everyone's eyes, but he paid them no heed. If you find it unbearable and wish to back out, it's still not too late. Wang Chong gently wiped his sword, not saying a word. Of the 5 of them, Wang Chong was the one who understood Zhao Qianqiu the most. He knew that Zhao Qianqiu taught the art of commanding, which was different from other instructors. However, Wang Chong didn't expect Zhao Qianqiu's style to be like this. If not for his swift reaction and the wood steel sword in his hand, he might not have been able to survive a dozen tigers thrown into his residence in the dead of the night. In terms of resilience, strength, endurance, and explosiveness, these massive tigers were far superior to him. There were a few times where Wang Chong was in a perilous situation. If he couldn't dodge it, he would really die. On top of that, Zhao Qianqiu chose to do it in the dead of the night. While the vision of a martial artist was limited, the tigers weren't affected at all. At the same time, Zhao Qianqiu even specially ordered 3 heavy armored tigers for him. This was way beyond the limits of the test. It was a little too much. This kind of teaching method was really too much. Hee, you think that I'm going overboard, right? Zhao Qianqiu sneered coldly as his face darkened. Let me tell you, I'm already being very merciful to you all. If I were to really do it my way, not even 3 of you would be able to survive. In fact, it would already be a miracle if there were even 2 of you. What do you think Kunwa training camp is? Is it a place where you indulge in debauchery? Is it a place where you nurture your friendships and make friends? Or is it a place where you can pick up high-tier martial arts for free? Let me tell you, if you harbor such thoughts, you should scram. This is a military camp, a battlefield. A place where the Empire grooms its strongest warriors. Do you think that I'll be the only one raiding a camp in the middle of the night when you're on the battlefield? Do you think that there will only be a few ferocious tigers that barge in? That you won't even know martial arts, relying on your instincts and brute force to barge in? On the battlefield, you don't have a choice. Your enemies won't just be a dozen or so tigers, and their strength won't be on par with yours. When those true martial realm, profound martial realm, and even imperial martial realm generals and generals appear in front of you and slash down with their sabers, do you think that there will be an instructor standing in front of you for you to scold? Zhao Qianqiu's gaze swept across the crowd coldly. The raiding of the tigers in the middle of the night wasn't some perverted game he had come up with, nor was it to torture and kill these students. Rather, it was to save them so that they wouldn't die on the battlefield. The battlefield isn't a game. On the battlefield, everyone can die at any moment. Anyone, including me. If you don't have such resolve, you won't be able to survive on the battlefield in the future. The entire room fell silent. Everyone was initially filled with rage, but upon hearing Zhao Qianqiu's words, none of them could say a word. Like water flowing out of a dam, the rage in their hearts vanished without a trace. Zhao Qianqiu wasn't wrong. On the battlefield, there wouldn't only be a dozen or so tigers, and it wouldn't be within the limits of their capabilities. Compared to the future battlefield, Zhao Qianqiu's experiment was nothing at all. Instructor Zhao. Just as Wang Chong was about to speak, an abrupt change suddenly occurred. Xiao. A sharp whistling sound echoed in the night sky. At first, it sounded like it was coming from afar. But in the next instant, everyone realized that they were wrong. Ah! A scream of agony echoed as a sharp wolf fang arrow pierced through Qi Weixi's shoulder. The immense force of the arrow sent him flying into the air, pinning him onto the wall 70 to 80 zhang away. Fresh blood flowed down Qi Weixi's face, and his hands fell to his sides. In an instant, he had lost all ability to fight. Xiao. Almost at the same time, another sharp arrow followed closely behind. This time, it wasn't aimed at Qi Weixi's shoulder but his heart. In an instant, everyone's face turned incomparably pale. Boom! A steel fist as large as a bowl and as swift as a bolt of lightning abruptly punched out, knocking away the fatal arrow. Get down! Zhao Qianqiu bellowed. While knocking away the second arrow, he dashed toward Qi Weici, who was pinned to the wall. Enemy attack! Almost at the same moment that Zhao Qianqiu dashed out, a deafening roar echoed in the darkness. It was the Imperial Army soldiers standing guard. But halfway through the roar, as if someone had grabbed his neck, it abruptly came to an abrupt halt. Amidst the darkness, one could vaguely hear the sound of a corpse rolling down the mountain. In an instant, everyone's face warped. That kind of steadiness and calmness invisibly gave people a sense of stability and conviction. How could I forget? There are tiger corpses everywhere here. We can use tiger corpses to block arrows. Actually, this is the safest place. Upon hearing Wang Chang's reminder, Zhao Qianqiu also came to a realization. Tigers had massive bodies, tough bones, and immense strength. Even though all of the tigers here had been killed by Wang Chong and Su Hanshan, their tough and dense bones served as the best shield. Furthermore, there were even 3 Xian steel-armored tigers that Zhao Qianqiu had specially prepared to deal with Wang Chong. Furthermore, the tough armor of these tigers was the best shield against arrows. Zhao Qianqiu's mind was in a mess, and all he wanted to do was to bring his students away from this place. Yet, he didn't think that this would actually be the safest place. Listen to Wang Chang's words. Push the tiger corpses to the windows, doors, and other places that are more vulnerable to attacks. Zhao Qianqiu replied to Wang Chong. Peng. A massive tiger weighing around 800 jin slid along the ground, and with a loud peng, its back brushed against the direction of the arrow. Su Hanshan was the first to make a move. His strength was even greater than Wang Chang's. In his hands, the heavy tiger corpses were as light as a feather. Peng peng peng. As soon as Su Hanshan made a move, Zhuang Zhengping, Zhao Jingdian, and the others followed suit. Each of the tigers was 2.45 meters long, and with just a few of them, they had already blocked the entire wall by the window. Not only so, they even stacked another layer on top of it. Pu pu pu. A series of dull thuds echoed in the air. Almost at the same moment that everyone was done, another volley of arrows flew over. Wang Chang's action of extinguishing the candles had played a crucial role. Unable to see the situation in the room, the master archers could only shoot blindly. Most of the wolf fang arrows pierced through the walls, only to be blocked by the tiger corpses. Be careful, the master archers of the Turk know how to shoot from afar. Be careful of their projectiles, everyone hide under the tiger carcass. Wang Chong didn't dare to get careless. He quickly pulled a heavy armored tiger over and hid under its corpse. The massive size of the tigers served as the best cover. Hiding under the tiger corpses, Wang Chong was able to see through every part of his body. Zhao Jingdian and Zhuang Weisi also pulled a few tiger corpses over and hid under them. Unlike Zhao Qianqiu's previous attack, this was an attack from a true human expert. Everyone could smell the thick stench of death in the air. Xiao xiao xiao. A series of hair-raising arrows echoed in the air. As if responding to Wang Chang's voice, a total of 50 to 60 arrows shot down from the sky. These arrows didn't come in through the windows. It seems like not only the royal court, even the Turkic Khaganate is paying attention to this matter. Wang Chang's heart turned grim. The royal court had established the 3 great training camps to select elites from the nobles, and officials. Such a huge matter had never happened before. As a potential enemy of the Tang dynasty, it was impossible for the Eastern and Western Turkic Khaganate to not pay attention to it. Wang Chong knew that he had neglected this matter. At this moment, what Wang Chong was worried about was whether this matter had caught the attention of Uzun and the Goguryeo Empire. Instructor Zhao, how many master archers are there in the Kunwu training camp? Sticking close to the tiger corpse, Wang Chong's mind worked furiously, and he abruptly turned around to ask. There are more than a dozen archers, but there are less than 5 master archers. Furthermore, they are scattered across the 4 bases. Zhao Qianqiu replied bitterly. Zhao Qianqiu understood what Wang Chong meant. The only ones who could deal with master archers were master archers. However, this was only the first day since the establishment of the Kunwu training camp. Other than a few master archers, there weren't any master archers stationed in the other bases. In the first place, this matter wasn't within the scope of the training camp's defenses. From the very start, the purpose of the training camp's defenses was to prevent others or those with ulterior motives from infiltrating the camp. Who could have thought that the Turkic Khaganate would dispatch master archers? Even though Zhao Qianqiu possessed extraordinary strength, he was completely lacking in archery. He was completely helpless against these master archers several li away. Xiao xiao xiao. Amidst the darkness, the deafening buzzing of the bows and arrows filled the skies. Screams of agony echoed endlessly in the darkness. It was hard to tell how many master archers there were. A master archer could shoot 50 to 60 arrows from a distance of several li in a second. If 10 of them were to shoot 5 to 600 arrows in a second, that would be 5 to 600. As long as there were 20 master archers, they would be able to create more than 1,000 arrows, covering the entire White Tiger Peak. The aura of death followed them like a shadow. In that instant, everyone's complexion turned awful. Wei Hao, you can only rely on yourself now. Wang Chong panicked. Everyone had their own connections. In the entire Kanwa training camp, other than Zhao Jingdian, there was another person Wang Chong was concerned about, Wei Hao. Kanwa training camp was surrounded by 4 training bases, Azure Dragon, White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, and Black Tortoise. Wang Chong had no idea which mountain Wei Hao was assigned to. Since the Turkic Khaganate had launched an assault, it was unlikely that they would only target White Tiger Peak. Wang Chong could only hope that Wei Hao would be able to avoid the danger upon noticing it. Under the pressure of the rain of arrows, this was the best solution. Ayo! Just as Wang Chong's mind was whirling, a wild howl suddenly sounded from the darkness. The reverberating howl shook the entire forest. Hearing this wild howl, Wang Chong's face immediately warped. It was the howl of a wolf. Furthermore, it wasn't the howl of a single wolf but the howl of a pack of wolves. Chapter 206. A Wolf. A wave of wolf howls rang out, followed by wolf howls from all directions. Countless wolf packs had appeared in the vicinity of the White Tiger Peak. Even though the Kanwa training camp was more than 20 li away from the capital, and it was set up in the depths of the mountains, it was impossible for there to be so many wolves in the surroundings. Turk grassland wolves. Wang Chong's face turned grim. The howls of the wolves were vigorous and forceful. In the whole world, there was only one place where so many wolves could appear. And that was the grassland where the Turks lived. These wolves were huge and extremely aggressive. Over the long river of time, some of the Turk experts had gradually learned how to control these wolves. In the war between the Central Plains Empire and the Turks, there was a case of the Turks summoning wolves to aid them in battle. If a large group of Turk soldiers were to cross the border, it was impossible for the royal court to not notice it. However, if wolves were to cross the border one by one, even if the guards by the border saw them, they wouldn't pay any attention to them. Clearly, the Turks had resorted to some little tricks. This is bad, the Turks are preparing to use the wolves to attack the peak. Zhao Qianqiu's complexion turned awful. He had also understood the situation. If it was just the wolves, the guards on the mountain would still be able to deal with them. However, if they were to work together with the Turk master archers, they would be in grave danger. There was even a chance that they might be wiped out by the Turks. If the 3 great training camps were to suffer such a heavy blow on the first day, it would be a huge blow to the empire's reputation. As the instructor of the training camps, this was unacceptable to Zhao Qianqiu. This won't do, I have to get out. Zhao Qianqiu panicked. Outside, the terrain was vast, and there was nothing to hide behind. It would be easy for the Turk master archers to shoot them down. But at this moment, Zhao Qianqiu couldn't care less. Instructor Zhao, how many men can you gather here? At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded. Wang Chong's voice was as calm as ever. The sudden assault on the training camps had left Wang Chong more anxious than anyone else. This was where the empire would have the most generals in the future. The death of any one of them would be a huge loss to the empire. More importantly, if he wanted to change the fate of the divine continent in the future, Wang Chong still needed the help of these people. Until now, Wang Chong still didn't know if this attack had already happened, or if it was because of him that fate had changed. No matter which one it was, Wang Chong couldn't just sit back and watch this happen. About 6 or 7 people. Zhao Qianqiu didn't know what Wang Chong was up to, but he still answered the latter's question. He had a deep impression of Wang Chong. Wang Chong was composed, calm, and collected. he was able to find a way out of danger. Using the tiger corpse to dodge the rain of arrows was the best proof. Can you find any sharpshooters in the training camp? Wang Chong asked. What do you want? Hearing those words, Zhao Qianqiu's body jolted. Recalling something, he turned to look at Wang Chong. It is a great taboo on the battlefield for us to scatter and do our own things. It will be easy for them to take us down one by one. Right now, we can only find a way to gather the sharpshooters on the mountain to launch a counterattack. Wang Chong said calmly. Currently, everyone was scattered all over White Tiger Peak, and they were all doing their own thing. Under such circumstances, even if there were quite a few Imperial Army guards on White Tiger Peak, they wouldn't be able to retaliate at all. The only thing they could do now was to rely on the sharpshooters and instructors. But have you ever thought that if we were to gather together, we would be a huge target, and it would be easy for us to be destroyed by the sharpshooters? Zhao Qianqiu understood Wang Chong's intentions. There's no other choice. If we were to gather together, it would be easy for us to be ambushed. But if we weren't, we would die even faster. Wang Chong said. Zhao Qianqiu could be considered as an experienced commander, but in this aspect, Wang Chong, who had been bathed in blood for his entire life, was even more experienced than him. I understand. 5 to 6 Imperial Army guards, instructors, and the sharpshooters on the mountain. This is the maximum number of people I can gather in the short term. Even though Zhao Qianqiu was an instructor, he didn't have the authority to mobilize the Imperial Army. Thus, Zhao Qianqiu could only look for those whom he was familiar with. This way, he could also save a lot of words. In this kind of dangerous environment, sometimes speaking a few more words might cause him to be targeted by others and lose his life. So, Zhao Qianqiu leaped forward, and before Wang Chong could even catch a glimpse of him, he had already slipped out of the room. With Zhao Qianqiu's departure, only Wang Chong, Zhao Jingdian, Zhuang Zhengping, Qi Weisi, and Su Hanshan were left in the room. No, that's not right. Wang Chong glanced around and realized that Su Hanshan had left with Zhao Qianqiu. The room was silent. Without Zhao Qianqiu around, everyone felt uneasy. Wang Gongzi, what should we do now? In the darkness, Zhuang Zhengping looked at Wang Chong and asked with a trembling voice. As an elite of the Zhuang clan, Zhuang Zhengping had been through a lot. But this time, it was completely different. At least 20 to 30 sharpshooters had turned the entire training camp into an abyss of death. Zhuang Zhengping could feel death looming over him. This was no longer a duel between experts, this was a battlefield. No matter how formidable Zhuang Zhengping was, he was only an outstanding scion. How could he have experienced such a brutal battlefield? Do you know anyone here? Wang Chong asked. I do, and they are all scions of the prestigious clans. However, I'm not sure if they are still alive. Zhuang Zhengping said. Alright, you should find a way to bring them here. Leave Qi Weisi here, and he won't be in danger for the time being. Jingdian, take care of him for a while. I'll go out to take a look. Without waiting for anyone to react, Wang Chong executed the dragon ascending the clouds of the dragon bone art and darted out of the room through the hole created by the Turkic master archers. Phew! A gust of wind blew, and as he dashed out of the room, Wang Chong felt as though he had entered another world. At the peak of the mountain were numerous palaces that were riddled with holes. Borrowing the weak light of the night, Wang Chong could clearly see that from his feet to the base of the mountain, it was a vast expanse filled with ferocious wolves. The howls of the wolves, the howling of the wind, the screams of agony, the clashing of weapons, and the sound of the Turkic wolf fang arrows piercing through the air, turning the entire training camp into a camp of death. Wang Chong's worst premonition had come true. It was impossible for these wolves to deal with the Imperial Army guards at the peak of the mountain. Amidst the pack of wolves, Wang Chong saw a few short figures sprinting as if they were flying, carrying at least 2, if not 3, swords in their hands. They dashed through the wolf pack, and some of them even managed to ride on the backs of one or two Turkic wolves. However, the wolves didn't seem to care about them at all, allowing them to ride on their backs without attacking them at all. "Oh, Dakaji, Ansaheo." An anxious and stern voice echoed in the darkness. This wasn't the language of the Turks, and the Turks wouldn't use 2 or even 3 sabers. Gogurians. A thought flashed across Wang Chang's mind. His worst premonition had been verified. The establishment of the 3 great training camps didn't just attract the Turks, it also attracted the attention of the Gogurians in the northeast. Both sides seemed to have sensed danger from the establishment of the 3 great training camps. The master archers of the Turks and the warriors of the Gogurians, as well as the pack of wolves from the northern plains, formed an invisible noose. In that instant, Wang Chong understood that White Tiger Peak and Kunwa training camp weren't the only ones under attack. The other training camps were bound to be under attack as well. Given the scale of the Turks' actions and the fact that they were working together with the Gogurians, it wasn't just to kill a few people or wreak havoc in the 3 great training camps. These people were intent on destroying the 3 great training camps. Be careful, there are Gogurians. A shrill cry echoed in the night sky, but before it could travel far, a wolf-fang arrow pierced through the throat of the imperial army leader. Following which, 3 more wolf-fang arrows pierced through his forehead, left chest, and right chest respectively. Pang! The imperial army leader fell backward onto the ground. Kill! As the wolves pounced forward, the Gogurian warriors hidden among them also charged forward. The entire mountain was filled with killing intent. Shio! All of a sudden, an arrow flew toward a Gogurian warrior in the distance. Clang! The Gogurian warrior reacted swiftly and instinctively slashed the arrow. However, something shocking happened. As though expecting the Gogurian warrior to make such a move, the arrow arced through the air and pierced into the arm of the Gogurian warrior. Brat! Hearing the Gogurian warrior curse in Gogurian, Wang Chong abruptly turned his head around and stared at the direction where the arrow came from. But before he could think too much, an imperial army member on the mountain had already pounced over. Be careful! A familiar voice sounded from the darkness. Wang Chong hesitated for a moment before he heard the dense sounds of arrows raining down. Shio shio shio, dozens of wolf-fang arrows fell from the sky. Peng peng peng. The ground shook, and a cloud of dust rose. 20 zhang away from Wang Chong, a dense carpet of wolf-fang arrows was embedded into the ground. Chen Burang. Wang Chong finally recognized the person. It was the young hunter, Chen Burang. Peng. Without any hesitation, Wang Chong returned to his room, grabbed a tiger carcass, and kicked it out. It landed not too far away from the rock where Chen Burang was hiding. Pu pu pu. Right after the tiger carcass was thrown out, a dense barrage of wolf-fang arrows flew over. He's being targeted. Wang Chong's reaction wasn't slow. With a single glance, he could tell that Chen Burang was being targeted by a master archer. Peng peng peng. The first one, the second one, the third one. Wang Chong used the tiger carcass to open up a path from the other side of the rock. Jingdian, bring some tables and chairs over. Wang Chong turned around and said. The broken tables and chairs weren't enough to stop the wolf-fang arrows, but at the very least, they could obstruct the vision of the master archers. On the other side, Chen Burang also understood Wang Chong's intentions. Shio, he darted out from the rock and followed the path that Wang Chong had opened up for him. Behind him, there were 3 or 4 other figures who followed him. It's you. Chapter 207. Wang Chong, why are you here? Chen Burang was pleasantly surprised. What about you? How did you end up there? Wang Chong asked. He was equally curious. That's a long story. In order to save them, I was targeted by a powerful sharpshooter. That guy's archery skills are amazing. He can shoot 80 arrows in the blink of an eye. The rock I was hiding on was shattered by him. If you hadn't appeared, I would have been targeted to death by him. Chen Burang's face was pale. He seemed to have exhausted a lot of energy, but he was still very excited. He didn't look afraid at all. Can you tell how many arrows he can shoot in a second? Wang Chong asked curiously. A second? Oh, you mean he's a fast archer. A trace of doubt flashed in Chen Burang's eyes, but he soon smiled. He had the simple and natural smile of a hunter in the mountains. When we hunt, our eyes must be sharp, and our ears must be sensitive. There are many plants in the mountains. Some prey can't be seen with the eyes, so our ears must be sensitive. Our village chief said that I was born different from others. I don't feel it myself, but I can indeed hear the sound of mosquitoes from a few miles away since I was young. Chen Burang admitted it frankly, as if he didn't think it was a big deal to have such an ability. The sound of mosquitoes. Wang Chong looked at Chen Burang in front of him. His heart trembled violently. It wasn't strange for an archer to have sensitive ears. All archers had this ability, and they had also cultivated it. But to be able to hear the sound of mosquitoes from a few miles away, even the sharpshooters Wang Chong met in his past life didn't have such an ability. He recalled that Chen Burang could sense the incoming wolf fang arrows in advance, but he couldn't hear anything. In an instant, Wang Chong seemed to understand something. His gaze towards Chen Burang was completely different. This person is too capable. It's no wonder why he could become a famous archer in my past life, leading the archers to be known as the elites of the Tang dynasty. Wang Chong looked at Chen Burang, his heart in turmoil. No one knew better than him that even though Chen Burang wasn't famous yet, he would definitely become one of the best sharpshooters in the world in the future. Putting everything else aside, just his hearing alone was enough to surpass the sharpshooters outside. Do you know how many sharpshooters there are outside? Wang Chong asked. The night was pitch black, and the whereabouts of those sharpshooters were uncertain. The most important thing now was to figure out how many enemies had come. There are a total of 43 sharpshooters, divided into two groups, one with 28 and the other with 15. Among them, there are 11 in the east, 14 in the west, 8 in the south, 8 in the north, and 2 in the forest 3,000 zhang southeast of the foot of the mountain. There are 11 in the east, 14 in the west, 8 in the south, 8 in the north, and 2 in the forest 3,000 zhang southeast of the mountain. Wang Chong was rendered speechless. Chen Burang's hearing ability had reached an unimaginable level. Two groups. Wang Chong quickly came to a realization and frowned. Aren't they all Turks? Turks. Hearing this name, the group stared at one another in shock. They had heard of the Eastern and Western Turkic Khaganates before. But ever since they were young, they had never come into contact with the sharpshooters of the Turks. I don't know who they are, but their shooting style is clearly different. One group of people used wolf fang arrows, while the other group only used vertical projectiles. They were especially powerful and were even harder to block than the group of people who used wolf fang arrows. Chen Burang said as he took out a broken arrow. Wang Chong glanced at it. It was a diamond-shaped arrowhead, and it looked exceptionally sharp. Chen Burang had chopped off the tail of the arrow. However, on the remaining arrow shaft, Wang Chong saw the emblem of a three-legged crow. It's the Goguryeo condor shooters. Wang Chong passed the broken arrow back to Chen Burang with a heavy heart. The Goguryons weren't a nomadic tribe, so they didn't have as many sharpshooters as the Turks. However, the top-notch archers of the Goguryons were even more formidable than those of the Turks. This was the condor shooters. Condors flew exceptionally high. Their muscles were powerful, and their wings were as tough as steel. Thus, they flew at an incredible speed. Most arrows, including the arrows of master archers, could be seen from above and dodged easily. It was difficult for most arrows to pose a threat to condors. However, the Goguryeo condor shooters were different. No matter how high or fast the condors flew, they would be able to hit them. In the previous wars against the Goguryons, there were many elites who died in the hands of the condor shooters. To think that the Goguryons would send even condor shooters over. Wang Chong frowned deeply. You guys come in first. Qin Burang, eat this pill. Wang Chong passed him a recovery pill. Wang Chong could tell that Qin Burang's archery was extremely bizarre. To think that he would be able to draw an arc in the air. For an Origin Energy Realm cultivator, this was an unimaginable feat. Qin Burang didn't turn down Wang Chong's offer. Together with the other three, they entered the house. At this moment, there were already 6 people gathered around Wang Chong. Including himself, there were 7 of them. To Wang Chong, this strength was more than sufficient for him to do something. Everyone, take off your clothes and use the broken wooden planks and wooden plaques in the house to prop them up. Make a few more dummies. Jingdian, bring them to make use of the tiger carcasses here to build a small-scale defensive barrier. Next up, it will be our turn to fight. Time was of the essence, and there were still the Imperial Army guards blocking the way outside. However, Wang Chong knew that the battle could reach here at any moment. Leave the dummies to me. I specialize in that. Qin Burang immediately understood the meaning behind Wang Chong's words. Upon hearing that Wang Chong would be making dummies, he immediately understood the latter's intentions. He was born in the mountains, and his family was a hunter. Making traps and disguises were all basic skills. Wang Chong nodded his head. Then, he squatted down and gathered everyone. The enemy came prepared, and they are all experts. In a one-on-one fight, none of us are a match for them. Everyone, take note. When we encounter enemies later on, follow this order. Whether we can survive or not will depend on ourselves. This time, no one said a word. Instead, they turned to look at Wang Chong silently. In a life-and-death situation, everyone hoped to have a backbone who could give orders on their behalf and unite the hearts of the people. Without a doubt, Wang Chong took over this responsibility. Outside the door, the sounds of fighting, screams, and wolf howls could be heard. The stench of blood permeated the air. Due to the lack of time, Wang Chong could only draw the simplest combination attack diagram. This was one of the common combination attack methods that Wang Chong implemented in the army in his later years. Unlike any other commander in the history of the Tang dynasty, during the period when Wang Chong was the commander, combination attacks were particularly common and frequent. It wasn't that Wang Chong had any special hobby, but that there were simply too many powerful opponents on the battlefield in his later years. This was especially obvious when they were facing the foreign invaders. Wang Chong's combination attack was also born in response to the situation. But it was also for this reason that the army under Wang Chong's command was particularly powerful. Whenever Wang Chong participated in a war, the casualties of the top-notch experts in the enemy's army would be extremely frequent. These experts, who were supposed to play an important role on the battlefield, would often die before they could even cause a ripple. The Turks and Goguryons had been preparing for this night assault for a very long time. In fact, even though they had never come into contact with each other before, they had come to an agreement in advance. Obviously, these people had already considered everything clearly. It was currently late at night, and the Kunwu training camp was more than 20 li away from the capital. Furthermore, it was located deep in the mountains, so it was impossible for the capital to receive news so quickly. Even if the capital were to discover the ambush, a few hours of travel was more than enough for them to take down the Kunwu training camp. On the other hand, just the Imperial Army guards in the training camp wouldn't be able to withstand the assault of 40 master archers, Goguryan warriors, and wolf packs. This tactic of the Turks had maximized the usefulness of master archers. A net of death was woven around the Kunwu training camp. But Wang Chong knew that these people had miscalculated. They had underestimated the thousands of students in the Kunwa training camp. Chen Burang was the best example. There were too many future great generals in this training camp. As long as they were utilized well, it wasn't impossible for the Turks and Gogurians to crumble this assault. Alright, everyone, remember the sequence. Time is of the essence, so hurry up and finish the preparations. As Wang Chong spoke, he was the first to rush out of the collapsed building. Wolf howls could be heard from outside, and he could already sense a few Turk wolves pouncing in his direction. Ayo! A massive Turk wolf barked its teeth with a vicious gaze. It was the first to notice Wang Chong standing outside the building. Roaring furiously, it leaped up and pounced forward. Chi! A cold gleam flashed, and before the Turk wolf could even get close, it was cleaved into two by Wang Chong. No matter how powerful a wolf was, it was no match for a ferocious tiger. The size and strength of the two weren't on the same level. Wang Chong would still find it difficult to deal with a ferocious tiger, but dealing with a Turk wolf was a walk in the park. There was nothing that could withstand the sharpness of the Wuzi steel sword. Chen Burang was extremely efficient. Very soon, he had erected many dummies in every part of the room that could be seen from the outside. Not only did Chen Burang make use of clothes, he even made use of bedsheets. This caused the number of dummies to multiply, and every single one of them was extremely lifelike. In this aspect, Chen Burang was definitely talented. The moment the dummies were erected, pu sounds echoed in the air. The eyesight of a master archer far surpassed that of an ordinary person, as well as everyone else here. However, master archers weren't invincible. A distance of several li allowed them to remain undefeatable, but at the same time, it limited their eyesight as well. Furthermore, darkness affected them as well. At such a distance, even a master archer wouldn't be able to tell the difference between a real person and a dummy. On the other hand, their superior eyesight could also be used to draw the enemy's attention and exhaust their arrows. Chen Burang completed his preparations. On the other side, Zhao Jingdian and Zhuang Jinping had also completed their mission. Wang Chong. In just a moment, the vanished Zhao Qianqiu finally appeared before Wang Chong with 5 imperial army guards and instructors. A massive bow on one of the instructors caught Wang Chong's attention. Master Archer. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.